Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Murder Church on a Sunday morning. Getting ready to jump in here to the continuation of Phil Spector. We're on episode 61. We're going to start this out. I think we're jumping back to a little bit of the side tooth trial thing. We're going to start out with LA County Sheriff Detective Richard Tomlin, who's been on the stand multiple times, and usually when he appears, that means something about the tooth. So yeah, get in here, give it a share on the old X if you can. I'd appreciate it. Give it a like, and let's hang out for a bit.
Let's rock.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. How's everything looking good? I believe it is. Let me turn my mic up just a little bit. There we go. Good morning. Murder Church on the air. Episode 61, believe it or not. Phil Spector. I see a few people coming in here this morning. I appreciate it, guys. Got BGOG in the house here. Motion to Scream. Tina coming through here. CH, Kathy. Thanks, everyone, for coming through. I appreciate it. Yeah, we're going to jump in here. Of course, per the usual, everything is wide open. I'll be checking everything throughout the stream of the giveaway stickers, magnets. I got the Publicly Buzz keychain that is in limited supply. But yeah, get in here, everybody. Hope everybody had a good weekend. Before we do get started, I do have a super cool banger show tonight. Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni show. I've got Lauren Conlon coming on here to discuss that with me. I've gotten pretty deep into that gossipy story, and it's pretty interesting, actually. It's a sexual harassment lawsuit by Blake Lively. But yeah, come in and tonight and hang out with me and Lauren. It should be a good one. Bonnie Bailey jumping in here. Yeah, let's jump in here this morning and see what Phil's got for us today, shan't we? Let me get the sound over here. Bada boom, bada boom.
You're still under oath. Would you state your name for
the
record?
There we go. Oh, let me get the bells going, though. Hold on. We got to hit the bells. You guys missed Feral Friday also. Holy shit. Feral Friday was insane. Had an amazing show with Chris Stewart. It was fucking awesome. Watching some cops. Watched this mini documentary called Heavy Metal Parking Lot. If you've never seen that, I got to break that out so I can get that for Patreon, folks, because that one, I don't want it to go away. It was wild.
Tomlin, thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Detective Tomlin.
Oh yeah, we got him, baby.
I recall that you're one of the lead detectives in this matter, correct?
Yes.
And you were from the very day this happened, February 3rd of 2003, correct?
Yes.
And at the time, your partner, just to refresh our memory, was?
Paul Fournier, Fournier.
Now, one of the many things that you would do as the lead detective in this matter would be, after the case is reviewed and filed, to work closely with certain deputy district attorneys that were assigned to the case. Is that right?
Yes.
And it's fair to say that Alan Jackson wasn't the first, but is one of the last, right?
Yes.
Okay. The detective.
Okay, a couple people doing some shares. Thanks very much. Kathy, appreciate it. Dizzy giving a share out there, and Seeking Justice. Thanks, guys.
The deputy district attorneys that you worked with in order of appearance, so to speak, were?
I believe Kevin McCormick, Mike Lattin, and then Doug Sortino.
And then Alan Jackson. And of course me.
Yes.
Now, in working with those deputy district attorneys, would one of your jobs be, and in fact, just in working in the sheriff's department, to maintain some kind of close control over the evidence, all of the evidence?
Yes.
And what did you do to accomplish that?
Well, basically, the case is given this case, the Clarkson shooting, was given a file number, a 15-digit number. Anytime any evidence is collected or placed, say, into the crime lab, it is entered in underneath that file number. That file number and the subsequent entries are kept in a computer data bank.
And the reason for doing that, for this, when you characterize this meticulous system that you have to keep control of all the evidence, what are the reasons for that?
Just so you can track the evidence, try to stay up on it.
you need that evidence for a couple reasons, right?
Yes.
To go to court with, to try to do what we're doing here, present evidence to a jury and have them make a decision, correct?
Yes.
And at other various times, you might need to have some hearing and produce evidence for a judge. Is that right?
Yes.
And with respect to the defense, is there some reason for that? For
Excuse me?
maintaining the evidence?
Yes. There's a evidentiary rule where the prosecution and defense counselors.
No foundation in improper opinions.
No, this is even a police officer or detective would know the responsibilities of discovery and perhaps mutual discovery, and I'll allow him to testify to it. The objection's overruled. It's also the reason why police officers maintain the exhibits, which is the evidence, which is the question he was asked. Overruled. You may proceed.
Okay, the prosecution and defense counselors are obligated to, under law, to exchange evidence and allow the other party to review that evidence.
And that's an important responsibility that you as part of law enforcement have, isn't that correct?
Yes.
To make sure that everybody gets a fair trial, you make sure that you maintain the evidence, log it, we even bait stamp it, correct?
Yes.
Which is a bunch of numbers so we can all track it, right?
Yes.
And then at some point you give it all to the defense.
Correct.
And as you suggested in your last answer, the defense has certain obligations to give the prosecution evidence. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Evidence with respect to certain evidence that they need to produce, right?
Correct.
For example, if they find something at the scene, they need to turn that over. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Let me ask you what, in terms of physical evidence, did you receive from the defense? Do you recall?
I did not personally receive, however, Dr. Lynn Harold, under this case, received 3 different items.
And Dr. Lynn Harold works for the Sheriff's Department, correct?
Yes.
She's, everybody's met her, but she's one of the scientists that works at the Sheriff's Crime Lab, right?
Yes.
And if she receives something, since she knows you're the lead investigator, she would alert you to that, right?
Yes, what she did in this case, she contacted me immediately and told me that she had received 3 different, during the course of this investigation, she had received packages and explained what she had received.
So that you can maintain your duties in logging and keeping track of the evidence, right?
Yes.
So you received a couple things. Can you tell us about them?
Yes, I believe October 16th of 2006, Dr. Harold, the defense team, sent her 2 Federal Express packages. One contained a paper bindle, if you will, that had 2 fibers in it. Another, which contained a Post-it note with a blood flakes on it. She later received, I believe sometime in May, I cannot remember the correct date, second week in May, she received a piece of carpet from inside the defendant's home.
Did you, or to your knowledge, anyone in the Sheriff's Department ever receive an item that might be described as a small, white, solid item about the size of a thumbnail that was flat and had uneven edges? Do you ever receive that from the defense?
No.
Do you ever receive that from, well, let me withdraw that and ask you this. During your time on this case, you became aware that there were lawyers on the case other than the ones that are here in court.
Yes.
And that included Bob Shapiro, correct?
Yes.
And Leslie Abramson.
Yes.
Marsha Morrissey.
Yes.
Did you ever receive that item that I just described, a small, white, solid item about the size of a thumbnail with uneven edges, flat? Did you ever
more than
receive that from
factual.
Bob Shapiro?
Welcome in here.
No.
Did you ever receive that from Leslie Abramson?
No.
Or from any of the lawyers here in court?
No.
Or their investigators?
No.
And in fact, you are aware that there are defense investigators, correct?
Yes.
Tani Tyndall, have you heard that name?
Yes, I have.
You didn't receive that from her.
No.
By the way, did you receive any tape recordings from her either?
No, I did not.
You're aware that that item's been asked for,
Yes.
but never received?
Correct.
Thank you, nothing.
Thank you, Cross. Thank you. Good afternoon, Detective. I wanted to just ask some follow-up questions along the lines that Mr. Dixon asked you. When you talk about receiving evidence, you're talking about from this death scene that basically we've been talking about in this trial that was looked at by the Sheriff's Department on or about the 3rd of February of 2003, correct?
Correct.
And basically, just so that we can put this in perspective, the Sheriff's Department had jurisdiction over that scene for a period of time. Is that accurate?
Yes, approximately 30 hours, I believe.
Okay, and in fact, you're the one that essentially released or turned it over back to the owner of the property through his lawyers and investigators, correct?
Correct.
And that was Mr. Shapiro, Dr. Lee, Dr. Bond. They came to that scene in the evening hours after it was dark on the 4th of February of 2003, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and basically, had you been there that particular evening before the scene was turned over?
No, I believe I received a telephone call from Detective Lillingfield that they had completed their task. They were satisfied at being at the crime scene and that they were prepared to officially turn the scene over to Mr. Shapiro. At that point,
Okay, go ahead. So did you
excuse
went
me,
there?
at that point, I went there.
Sorry to interrupt, I'm sorry. In other words, completed their task, meaning that the Sheriff's Department, through its investigators, its experts, its criminalists, had finished doing the work that they needed to do, correct?
Correct.
As far as collecting evidence, is that true?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Renteria, when he testified here, and I believe Mr. Kyle, you know him, don't you?
Yes.
You know both, they're criminalists, basically, is that true?
Yes.
And when they were here, they talked about collecting items of evidentiary value. Do you know what that term is, evidentiary value?
Yes.
Okay, in other words, they not only see something in a scene, but they have to make a judgment as to whether it's of value for purposes of collection. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so they did that. They testified that they did that. Do you have any question or quarrel that they did their jobs?
Objection, that's calling trying to make it inclusive and speculative.
If he has any information, so I'll allow it.
Okay. Do you have any reason to believe that they didn't do their job?
No.
Okay. Now, I want to sort of go back in time and kind of trace it. You talked about 3 items that were turned over because you requested them or somebody requested them from the prosecution. Is that correct? 3 items.
Yes.
One was a piece of carpet. Is that true?
Carpet fibers, yes.
Well, no.
Oh, excuse me, carpet, yes.
Okay, that was sort of last in time that you testified that in May, there was, May of this year, there was a piece of carpet that was turned over. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, I want to mark next in order. This would be SH5.
H10.
All right, I'm gonna go make some coffee, guys. I'll be right back.
H10?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to put this on the overhead and ask you to take a look at that. You recognize what that depicts?
Yes.
Okay, now you were at the scene yourself, is that true?
Yes.
In fact, there were, between the time of the officer's original arrival and the time you turned it over to the attorney for Mr. Spector, there were well over 100 people that logged into the scene, isn't that correct?
That's a little misleading.
Okay, some people logged in and logged out, but...
Yes, I personally probably logged in and logged out probably 7 or 8 times.
Okay. Do you know how many people were in and around the scene during that time, from the time that initial officers got there and the time that you got there?
Actually inside the scene,
Right. Just your best estimate.
I would roughly 15 to 20.
Mr. Dixon logged into the scene, is that true?
Objection. It's vague as to what's the scene. The whole property could be the scene or just
The individuals are
house.
unimportant. If the number of people, to the best that he can do, that's all that's important.
I'll withdraw that. There was a log kept of people that logged into the scene. True or false?
Yes.
Okay. Now, this is actually the large blood stain that was near the chair, and the chair is now out of this picture, but it was near the chair where Atlantic Clarkson's body was observed. Is that true?
Yes.
You saw the body when it was in the chair, and this was the stain that was essentially beneath or next to the chair. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, when all of these people that went to the scene that were doing the work that you and Detective Lillenfield talked about as saying that they took everything that they wanted, was this carpet section taken?
No, it was not.
Okay. But it was eventually apparently turned over because you requested, because somebody from the defense actually cut it out and collected it. Is that correct?
It was eventually collected by the defense. I don't believe we requested that it be cut out.
Okay. In other words, they just happened to do it, and then you requested it be turned over. Is that true?
Yes.
Was it missed by your experts for the sheriff's department? Was it somehow overlooked or something?
Be back.
I don't believe so. I believe a sample was taken of the blood.
Okay.
As a course of business, we're not going to try to destroy a person's home. If evidence can be collected sufficiently.
Posted this morning. Did you guys see this dude that posted? What did it not post? There was a dude that was like, I guess, going viral for escaping from prison, but it looks like it's bullshit. Did that not go through? It's literally still going through, and it just posted. Phones are fucking stupid. Let me get this up here. It should have just posted, though. But yeah, I guess he's a comedian that had gotten arrested for doing some kind of vandalism or something. And it looks legit. It looks real. If it goes the fuck through here. I don't know if it's going or not. Let me know. Now I need to find
doing
it.
that. I cannot speak specifically in that instance. However, that's how normally business is done.
Okay. In other words,
Posted
you wouldn't
something
have any quarrel
earlier
with the
this week
criminalist
that
said
took
you
forever to
didn't
go through,
feel
and then
that
it posted
cutting out that
twice.
stain, that area of the carpet, had any evidentiary value. That's why you didn't cut it out. In other words, you wouldn't quarrel with that determination, would you?
Jackson, to be honest.
Yeah, this right here. Apparently this is not real. It looks legit as fuck, though. It looks like this dude is legit breaking out of prison. So I was like, oh shit. And then I just did a little bit extra research and I found out that this is not, in fact, really happening.
It's time to break out of jail. Come on. There we go.
So you just get a bunch of his friends together and like, hey man, get some white tees, get a blue jumpsuit. We're going to go under this fence out here by the Walmart.
Everybody. Go. Come on, show us where to go.
It seems real as fuck, though.
Come on, guys. All right.
Dude, I was sold. I was like, whoa, and I totally believed that a lot of these prisoners fucking have cameras and shit, so. Let me get the sound back for old feel here.
The fact that he would quarrel or not quarrel with it is irrelevant.
Anyway,
What the fuck, though? Dude's name is William Banks. It was from Connecticut. And of course, the people that are posting it are not adding that it's fake or most likely fake. Everything's stupid, dude.
mentioned that it was your understanding that a sample of this particular stain on the carpet was taken. What's the basis of your understanding of
No,
the test?
let me correct you. I said I do not know. However, I would believe.
Yo, Kathy, thank you very much for coming through with that 420. I appreciate that. Passing the plate for Pastor Steve. Thank you. We'll get you on this thing. We started building a wheel on Feral Friday. Let me see where you got you at there, Kathy.
That
Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate
in
it.
normal course of business, that would be collected as opposed to cutting up the whole carpet.
In other words, that a sample of it would be collected as opposed to the entire carpet.
Oh, yeah, there
correct?
we go.
Yes. Okay.
Five.
In any event, your
5 to start us out on a wheel.
crime
Ain't too
laboratory
bad.
and the law enforcement received the carpet that was cut out by somebody on the defense for whatever reason, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And to your knowledge, has anything been done with that since it was turned over?
Jackson, that's calling for hearsay and speculation.
His knowledge, he might have some personal knowledge, he might not, I don't know. Do you have any personal knowledge?
No, I do not, sir.
Okay. Now I want to show you another photograph here. This is SH number 12.
Brooklyn with
And
the share. Thanks,
we're going to
Brooklyn.
move away from the carpet. We're going to talk about the other two items that you
Morning, Dixie.
mentioned. And if I remember and correctly understood your testimony, is that
Currently
back in
questioning everything about Phil
November
Spector in this
of
trial.
2006, two items were received by Federal Express package by somebody that you were alerted to as being the person
We're in Phil
responsible
Spector
for
purgatory.
the overall chain of custody and role that you played in this case, correct?
Actually, it was October 16th, and it was Dr. Harold contacted me.
Okay, and basically what happened is that, and we'll ask that this be marked next in order, which would be 10I, I believe?
I to the 10th, decouple I, however we want to do it, and that would be in that photograph.
And do you recognize what this photograph shows, Detective Tomlin? Does it show the two items that were received?
Yes.
Okay, and one of them, and it's actually upside down, so I'm not sure we could read it, but one of them says, number 1, blood-stained threads, 2403, and then it has some initials there. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you know whose initials those are?
No, I don't.
Okay. In any event, that was turned over to your department, is that correct?
Yes.
And November 16th of 06, correct?
I believe it was October 16th.
October, I'm sorry, I keep saying November, I apologize. October 16th of 06. To your knowledge, has anything been done with that since it was turned over?
I have no idea.
And do you know what was actually in there?
I believe I was shown a photograph of two, look like carpet fibers.
I'm going to ask that SH number 11 be marked next in order.
J,
Okay.
10.
10J. 10Js. And do you recognize what 10J depicts? Is that a photograph of what was in number 1 packaging?
Yes.
Okay. And it has some type of a ruler at the bottom. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, to your knowledge, do you know what what that consisted of and where that was collected according to the documentation that was given?
No, I don't recall.
Now, Mr. Dixon asked you about all the information that goes back and forth between the defense. In other words, the reports that are generated by both law enforcement officers as to witnesses, lab reports, they go to the defense. For example, witnesses that the defense calls, their experts' reports and notes go to the prosecution. You're aware of that?
Yes.
And do you know whether there were any notes from a criminalist by the name of Dr. Henry Lee that were turned over regarding these items or not?
Jackson hearsay,
Overruled if there were notes that he's aware of.
I'm not aware.
Okay. You don't know whether there were notes created, whether they were turned over or not, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, with reference to photographs, do you know if there were any photographs that were turned over by Dr. Henry Lee of the collection of this item as well as any other items he collected?
I do not know. I was shown photographs by Dr. Harold. I don't know if she took them or the photographs were provided to her.
Okay, fair enough. Now let's get back to Exhibit 10I, which is the photograph that has the two pictures of, I'll just call them packages for lack of a better word at this point. The number 2 package, which now is truly upside down, says, if I'm reading it correctly, number 2, blood drop on stair 2403 with the same initials as the first one. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And did you ever look at that stain or what was in that package?
No, I just looked at the photographs.
Okay. Now I'm asking you to, we'll have the next one marked next in order, and this is SH number 20.
K10.
10K, we'll call it.
Well, don't call it 10K because 10 would make it a people's. It's K. It's actually decouple K, but we're going to call it for short so everyone doesn't go as nuts as I am. K10.
K10.
Okay.
As nuts as all of us.
10 Ks, in other words.
Now,
Larry
do you
Fiddler.
recognize this photograph here as being one that was shown to you regarding this evidence?
Yes.
Okay. And we'll look at the next one in order, which would be scan number 9, and it would be L10?
L10.
L to the 10th. do you recognize this particular photograph as being a close-up photograph of that same stairway area?
Yes.
Okay. And is this one that was shown to you that was regarding this evidence?
Yes.
And to your knowledge and in your experience, do criminalists and members of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department Crime Laboratory, do they ever use a ruler that says Dr. Henry Lee in their photographic work that they do?
No.
Would that suggest to you that this photograph wasn't taken by somebody in the Sheriff's Department?
Yes.
Have a minute. When a criminalist goes to a scene and collects evidence, one of the things that they might collect is stains of blood. Is that true?
Jackson, that's calling for speculation.
I think you're going through the wrong witness at this point, I believe.
God in
have you ever
heaven.
Have you ever seen a criminalist collect blood?
Thanks for coming in, Brooklyn.
Yes.
All right.
In fact, you've actually pointed out blood or what you suspect might be blood and asked a criminalist to take
This
a look
trial
at
is
it
actual
and
hell.
collect it for purposes of a case.
Has its entertaining points,
Yes.
but
Okay, and sometimes
it largely
there's,
sucks horribly.
at a scene, there's multiple stains of blood, and the criminalist doesn't necessarily collect each and every one. They might collect a representative sample. Is that true?
Yes.
Sometimes criminalists and detectives, they kind of work together at a scene, do they not?
At a scene, I just try to facilitate however I can so that they can do their job. I ask them what I would like, and
Morning,
I'm
Joe.
trying to help in whatever way I can so they can successfully do what they need to do.
And sometimes at a scene that there's interaction between detectives, like in this case, Detective Lillenfield was the detective kind of in charge of the scene itself, correct?
Yes.
And the criminals, they kind of work together hand in hand. Is that true?
I wasn't there, I would imagine so.
It's kind of a partnership that they work together on. Is that
Yes.
fair way to say it? And sometimes they look at things and they determine things may not have evidentiary value and they leave it. That's one choice that they may make, correct?
Jackson, calling for speculation.
It's far exceeding the scope of what this witness was called for as to what certain items were received. Okay, so I'm going to sustain my own objection to that ground. We're going far beyond what he was
Okay,
called
very
for.
good. Let me have a second.
Okay.
I'm almost done.
Good morning, Brooklyn. We got double Brooklyns in the house here. Am I seeing double?
As far as this blood
Am I
that
seeing
was
double?
received by the laboratory, the Sheriff's Department laboratory.
Double Brooklyns. That's a tag team.
Back in
Ladies and gentlemen, now
October
making their way down the aisle.
2006. Do you know if that
The
was
team
ever
of
evaluated
Brooklyn
or tested
and Brooklyn.
genetically
Double
to see
Brooklyn.
where that blood may have come from?
I don't know.
Do you know whether it was even tested to see whether it was blood?
I don't know.
And just to finish up here, did you testified that Detective Lillenfeld, once he called you and you came and released the scene, that he felt that they had taken everything that they wanted, that they had completed their job? Do you have any reason to believe that hadn't occurred?
Not at all.
Thank you. Nothing further. Your witness.
Thank you. Redirect. Thank you. A couple questions. So the way this worked was you weren't at the crime scene when it was turned over to the defense, or at least when Detective Lilyfield called you and asked you to, or told you that they were through. Is that right?
No, I arrived. He told me that they were going to release it, and I arrived. And within 5 minutes of my arrival, Mr. Shapiro was officially given the place over. It was turned over to them.
So I guess that was my point. You were present when that was done.
Yes.
And Mr. Shapiro wasn't just alone. He had a number of people with him, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
A couple investigators, correct?
Yes.
Romaine,
Jay Romaine, yes.
Stan White,
Yes.
a couple other lawyers.
Yes.
Any of them carrying booties you saw?
No.
Did they go on the crime scene while you were there?
Yes.
Were they wearing booties?
No.
Okay. All right, no booties. Going back to what Mr. Plort asked you, a couple questions about what was sent to you. He showed you a photograph that had some threads with blood on it.
Yes, they did.
That looked like a small white solid object about the size of a fingernail with solid and uneven edges?
Not at all.
Could we put back up defendants J to the 10th? Is that possible? I don't know who to ask. Thanks.
There you are, Mr. Dixon.
Oh, no, maybe it was it K? I'm sorry, K. I apologize. Thanks, Sudie. That, all right. And then there was even a better close-up of that, but we'll use that one for now. Was it L? Maybe we have L to the 10th. Thanks. Did you ever get this?
No.
Something that was small, white, solid, about the size of a thumbnail maybe, with uneven edges. Did you ever get that from the defense?
No.
From Dr. Henry Lee?
No.
And your understanding with all this discovery obligations we were talking about, so the prosecution has obligations, correct?
Correct.
So does the defense. Is that
Yeah.
right? Is that your understanding?
Yes.
And if they find something or move it or touch it in any way to a crime scene, their obligation is to give it over to law enforcement. Is that right?
That question as to this witness, I think, is inappropriate. I don't think he's the appropriate witness for it. We can take care of this in many different ways later.
Thank you, Your Honor. Nothing further.
Thank you. Recross? Redirect, I'm sorry. No, recross. Losing track of who's calling the witnesses. It's recross.
Well, this is it, so
No further questions.
Finally went through.
Whatever it
Jesus,
was.
why did that take
In
so
any
long
event,
to
thank you.
go
Subject to
through?
recall, you may step
Posted
in.
at like 8:40 this
that
morning.
and the introduction of our exhibits, we're ready to rest.
All right, subject to the introduction of exhibits, then the people rest.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. My understanding, well, that does, it has some effect on how we proceed tomorrow, because in the morning, I know at least one of the jurors has an appointment. We were not scheduled to be in session in the morning. We will resume with the jury at 1:30 in the afternoon. Keep in mind the
Interesting.
admonition. We'll see you at 1:30. I'd ask counsel to remain while we go over some scheduling issues.
All right, let's see where we're headed
The
next.
jurors and the alternates have left. It would appear to me that unless there's some good reason not to, we have tomorrow morning, the defense has told me, they want to make it 11:18. Tomorrow morning would be a perfect time to make it, and also to go over the people's exhibits and any objections to the people.
The people have
Mr. Jackson.
spoken.
Oh, no, it's just a lot of work for me tonight, that's all.
Oh, well,
No problem.
we have to do it sometime, so
No
unless
problem.
there's some reason we can't do it tomorrow morning, if there's not, let me know, but we have the time.
I don't have any problem with it. I'm available, except I do have a couple of quick...
No one gives a shit what you think,
I
Rosen.
figure to argue the motion and the
cunt.
exhibits is not going to take more
Sitting
than
next to Lenny Kid and Bod,
half hour, an hour, maximum.
making our ways to the
Okay.
YouTube
So we can come in at
ranks
11
here.
if you want.
Your Honor, we have a written response to any 1118 motion. We'll file that.
You have one before it's made, or?
Well, that's part of our job is trying to look ahead and anticipate, and we've done that. So we'll file that either in the
believe
next
they're-
few minutes or
Well,
tomorrow.
I do like the back and forth.
Minds,
They're
which
funny,
This
man.
time you may want to make a motion, I don't know.
I'd say Mr. Dixon
Judge Dahard's the best, though.
In excess of 35 years, he does always a very good job.
Shut the fuck up.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Stupid motherfucker.
You want it 11 o'clock tomorrow, then?
Sure.
Okay.
We'll make sure the defense gets.
Fight Rosen in real
11 tomorrow,
life.
thank you.
This man on the street. Just for being a prick. Let's see where we're going next. 34 minutes. The judge and counsel discuss exhibits outside the presence of the jury. Let's get a little bit of this going.
All right, on the record, the counsel are present. The defendant is not pursuant to his waiver. We're here for
Maybe a little fro
two matters.
action here,
First,
huh?
the people's exhibits.
Little Philly fro
And, if you
action.
had a chance, I assume that's why we're starting late to go over all the exhibits.
Yes. What we did this morning, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Dixon, myself, and Mr. Flores, and Mr. Cutler, we went through the exhibit to shorten the argument time,
Okay.
and I think we've agreed on a lot of things.
Okay.
And what I did is I wrote a list of those that we had some concerns with. I shared it with both gentlemen, and I think if we just go through, we could probably do it in 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay.
Probably. May I just come over to the prosecution side so I can...
Can I make a note? You said 5 or 10 minutes?
Yeah, he said that.
I did say that.
All right.
It's fist fight.
The first one is exhibit.
Dude, I would pay money to see Alan Jackson and Rosen fucking duke it out, bro.
I think we should do it in the following manner, what we're offering.
Okay.
And then we can go from there, or do we have another suggestion?
Mr. Dixon, whatever your pleasure.
Or we can talk about that well, let's see, we're offering 1 through 40, 42 through 52, 54, 55, 57, 58, 59, and 61 through 157.
Wait, 58, 59, and what was that?
And 61 through 154.
Okay, so just right now, you're taking out 41, you're taking out 53,
Correct.
56.
Correct.
And 60.
Correct. Some of those were duplicative. Now, the defense had an objection to many of our exhibits that showed a weapon, because what they saw, and what we still had in our book here, it said murder weapon. We have corrected all those. All those photographs or documents that will go into evidence don't have the word murder on them.
Okay.
To say weapon. So I think
Jackson?
we corrected that issue to some degree. So having said that, maybe we can now hear what the defense objects
Well,
to.
before you do that, you have your exhibits go up to number 165.
shut our big lots
so
down
what's
around
something
here.
Between 154
Sons of
and
bitches went out of
165.
business.
Well, it was my
Is that a
view,
nationwide
and
thing?
we could be wrong about this, that at this point, we would ask the court to admit all the exhibits that we have marked during our case in chief. Those remaining exhibits have been marked during the defense case, and we talked and agreed that perhaps it would be best to address those at the end of the defense case. What I've just addressed here is what was marked during our case in chief.
I see what you're saying, all right.
Mr. Dixon and I talked about it, and I said that's just fine.
Okay,
Either side can move those at the time the defense case closes.
all right, so as to the people's exhibits that they are seeking to introduce, which would be everything between 1 and 154, with the exception of 41, 53, 56, and 60, what exhibits do you have objections to?
When does my 5 minutes start?
4 minutes go.
Jesus fuck.
No, take as much time as you need.
No! Don't tell him that! We're going to be here for 20 minutes.
Number 3.
Okay,
Actually, we could probably handle 3 and 7 together. Those are transcripts of, number 3 is a transcript of Dorothy Melvin's message that she provided to the prosecution, purportedly messages that contain the defendant's voice on it. And then the exhibit number 7, that's a similar thing. It's a transcript of purportedly the voice of the defendant leaving messages for Stephanie Jennings. So we object to the transcripts going in. Certainly, we had no problem with them being used to facilitate the jury listening to the tapes when they were played in court, but we don't think that's evidence. The evidence is the tape itself. They're going to have the tapes. They can play the tapes till their heart's content and listen to the tapes, and they're going to have 12 pairs of ears to listen to those tapes. So we object to 3, which is the transcript of Dorothy Melvin's, I'm going to say Dorothy Melvin's messages, I know the court knows what I mean, and 7, which is a transcript of the Stephanie Jennings messages. You wish me just to go through the list? Yes. Okay. 4, exhibit number 4 is the actual CD of a phone message left with Melvin, and we object to that. And 8 is the tape of the message left with Jennings. And those objections are being made at this time almost as renewed objections, because at the time, as the court will recall, we objected to them, the court overruled us and they played them. So we're just renewing those objections. They're not new ones. Number 23 is a very unflattering booking photo of Mr. Spector from it's about, I believe, from mid-chest up, or maybe the upper part of the chest up. And we object to that because we feel it's inflammatory. We feel it casts in a very, very bad light. And actually, we feel that the government doesn't need it, because if you take a look at 38, exhibit number 38, that is the exhibit that has the photo of Mr. Spector. Actually, it's 2 photos side by side. And it's actually a better photo because, one, it does not have the problems that we see that are attendant to Exhibit 23, which is a very unflattering photo. And more importantly, 38, Your Honor, has him wearing the clothes that were worn that evening, absent the white jacket, but he has on a black shirt, and he has on the black pants, and it's not particularly flattering, but certainly doesn't. It pales in comparison to how unflattering 23 is. So we say since they have 38, we don't think they need 23, and we would object to that. 26 had the words murder weapon. That's going to be taken care of. 31 is the next one then, and that again is another transcript of the DeSouza call to Ms. Blaine, who was the secretary assistant, aide de camp, chargé d'affaires, whatever term you want to give her at that time. And again, that's a transcript, same grounds. That shouldn't go into the jury room. It's not evidence. It's a document prepared by some transcriber. The best evidence of it is obviously the call itself, which is coming in. I assume that's number 32, the 9/11 tape. And again, that's a renewed objection based on the objection from before, and we're expecting the same ruling on 4, 8, and 32. But I just, for clarification purposes, if this is ever read at a later time, we are renewing the previous objections at the time that they were made earlier in the proceedings. Okay. 33 is again a transcript of the 9/11 tape, and we object to that for the same reasons as stated previously as to Exhibits 3, 7, and 31. 34 we object to. That was the VHS that was played for the jury of the interview of Mr. DeSouza at Alhambra Police Department, if I recall correctly. And if I remember right, Mr. DeSouza was sitting down in the front row here where Mr. Wiley is seated now. And I think the entire tape was played, if I remember right. I think the whole tape was played up on the screen for the jury. And we object to that going in because what it does is it allows the jury to have another testimony, if you will, a second testimony of that by the that was presented by the government, and we feel it's cumulative because he testified to it, they've seen it before, and also we would invoke a due process.
And Jessica, our justice is going live, I think around 12:30 or something today, so it should portal into her. I'm going to go ahead and set that up. I don't think I'm going to be streaming that long.
35, again, it's a transcript, same argument.
Almost done with the wrestling video. I got to edit some today.
53, we've resolved that.
I'll release it today.
So
and then I got a live tonight as well. Warren Conlon, excited about that.
53 has already been resolved.
Jessica's.
Mr. Dixon, I think somebody will offer, so I'm assuming.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
53 is not being offered.
That's something, yeah, we agreed to on that. 58 was a letter, a very brief missive.
I don't see her having one set up, though.
Nuttig, N-U-T-I-G.
Maybe she changed her mind.
And we object to that. We don't think that has any relevancy or materiality to the issues here. And it's kind of like the court ruled.
Or got busy or something.
Our vehement position to allow the life story.
I'll send you to Salty Sleuths for now.
We sort of thought that kind of maybe fell into that.
Well, she should still be
category
going,
also.
I guess. It starts at like 10:15.
66 we've resolved, and we're going to remove the words.
Either way, man.
71
Either way.
to 79, yes.
Yo, Carrie,
71
what's
to
up?
79 inclusive.
Morning.
Are photographs of the other weapons, and this will be a renewed objection, which really goes way back to the pretrial motion that I think Mr. Sortino and I argued here several years ago regarding, I think to refresh, I don't think the court needs its memory refreshed. I think the court's very familiar with this issue, but it was when Mr. Sortino had made a motion to admit a number of weapons. The court vetted his request and allowed some and didn't allow others. The ones that they did allow have now, without any surprise, turned up as evidence in this case, or purported evidence, and they are found in 71 through 79, actually the photo and the actual weapon itself. So we are renewing our objection to those once again to preserve the record. 123 is a photo of the Colt Cobra. And we object to that because we find it to be cumulative. They had a picture of it earlier on, and again, I'm reading my own handwriting. It's either 25 or 26. I think it's 26. But that's a photo of it also, so we object to 123 on cumulative grounds. 114.
Harry coming through.
I'm sorry. that I skipped ahead here.
okay.
114 is a photo of Miss Clarkson. It's actually a composite of 3 separate still photos of Miss Clarkson supine on the gurney at the coroner's office, and we object to that as being unduly influensive and also inflammatory and cumulative. And then the rest we've resolved. 143, 144, and 145, the words murder weapon are going to be removed or have been removed, so that takes care of it.
Okay. Just give me a moment. People wish to be heard at all.
Briefly, Your Honor, with respect to the transcripts, and I think there are a number of them, 3, 7, 8. Do you mind if I sit while I do this?
No,
Thank you.
You don't have
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't ask for permission. I just,
please.
3, 7, 8, 31, and 33, the jurors had these when they listened to the tapes. They assisted them, and it would seem to me that they should go into evidence to assist them in the same manner they did in the courtroom. Of course, at the end of the day, it's your decision.
Okay. All right.
Would you like me to continue?
Oh, absolutely.
Fine.
I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
4 was a CD phone message regarding Dorothy Melvin that was played to the jury. I think Mr. Rosen, it just indicated he's renewing his earlier objection, and we would ask the court to make the same ruling that it made at the time that it was introduced to the jury. The next one would be 23. That's the booking photo of the defendant. I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe that Mr. Souza and Officer Heckers both used this in identifying him. Certainly, Mr. DeSouza did. We think that it's relevant for that reason. There is no prejudice as to how he's dressed. I'd be happy to hand it to you. You can hardly see that he has anything more than a V-neck T-shirt on, apparently. I mean, I've seen the defendant here in court and other photographs of him. I don't see the prejudice. He looks like he often looks. Let's see, we've dealt with that. 34, I believe, is the next one, and 35 is the transcript of the VHS interview by the officers of Mr. DeSouza. I think the transcript would either come in or not, according to the earlier decision with 3, 7, 8, 31, and 33. But the VHS video should come in, and I really do think the transcript should, for the following reason.
Bring her in. Bring it all in.
Cross-examining Mr. DeSouza.
Let's paint this picture.
And clearly, important part of his cross-examination was questioning Mr. DeSouza's language skills and his ability to understand the defendant at the time that he made the statement, I think I just killed somebody. This VHS interview is the best evidence of his ability to understand at the time that this happened, not 4 years later when he was cross-examined and then redirect on that issue. This is an interview with audio and visual where he's interacting with people speaking English. It goes on for a while, and it's clear his language ability, since that was cross-examined on so heavily and was made such an important issue by the defense. I think this should go to the jury. It's the best evidence of his ability to speak English. It's also a prior consistent statement to many of the issues that were brought up in cross-examination, for example, the INS issue and the like, because again, this was done, I believe, the same day or just later the next day. And for the same reasons, the transcript 35 should come in. The next one is 58, the letter to...
he really does it. He ages pretty damn good, doesn't he?
Fix the wrists of Lana Clarkson. This is very different than the so-called life story. This is a card showing her state of mind at the time of an event that the defense has characterized as very depressing, and I think everyone would agree that was a very serious and upsetting incident to Miss Clarkson, and yet the letter is very upbeat. It's one that most of us would send to a doctor thanking them for their help and getting our lives back on track. I think it goes to her state of mind and is admissible. 71 through 79, these are the other weapons issue that Mr. Rosen mentioned. The court has ruled on this. We'd ask the court to make the same ruling that it did in the past for the same reasons. 123 is a photograph of the weapon, not
Navy
we
safe
call it
carry.
the murder weapon, but this is different because
This is
there's
hell
really two
one
photographs,
sunny
A and
day.
B,
Welcome
that
in.
shows the weapon
This
and
was
how
in
it
California in
perfectly,
2007. Full
according to the
Spector trial.
photographs, fits into the holster that was in the desk next to Miss Clarkson's body
Good
when she was
morning,
found
bro.
in the chair. And it demonstrates that. There was testimony from our ballistics expert on that, I believe, and others. And I know Mark Lillingfield, who I did the direct on, mentioned it. So I think it's not cumulative. It shows how the weapon, the holster fit. Lastly, I think this is the last exhibit, 114, the 3 photographs of the body of Lana Clarkson at the coroner's office. This shows the purge that happened where there was blood and other fluids that covered part of her jacket. Jamie Lintemuth testified extensively
Yo,
on this.
Oasis
and,
Cat, morning.
I think it's admissible and it's really required to make her testimony make sense. That's our position.
Thank you.
May I just respond briefly?
Yes.
Just a couple of points.
Shit, my witness ain't even right.
As to
Take that off until we get a new one.
7, 8, and 33, which I think I've properly identified as the transcripts. The government argues that
Lying
they
to
should come in
everyone.
because it will assist the jury. But we're arguing about evidence now. Transcripts are not evidence. If we're looking, to borrow Mr. Dixon's phrase, for the best evidence is actually the tape or the CD or the DVD itself. And the transcript is, what happens is, and we all know this, the danger here is that if the written word is read, the human mind tends to magnetize towards the written word as opposed to the spoken word. And the transcript was prepared by others. Now, we've all gone through them and we've vetted them for that purpose, but I think it creates a danger. It's not necessary. Certainly, the jurors will have the actual DVDs or CDs or tapes to listen to, and that is the best evidence. And that gets me to the argument that Mr. Dixon made regarding, I think it was 34 and 35, Mr. DeSouza's, the VHS of Mr. DeSouza and the transcript of Mr. DeSouza at the Alhambra Police Station where the interview was conducted. And he has indicated that that's really the very best evidence of his ability to speak English. And with great respect towards Mr. Dixon, because this court knows Mr. Dixon and I have a long history together, and I do have great respect for him. I would disagree, and I disagree because the best evidence of his ability to understand English and his ability to demonstrate how he speaks English, albeit it's 4 years later, is when he testified as a witness for the government here. And the jurors listened to him, and whether they factor in the fact that it's 4 years later and his English speaking skills have increased and gotten better, we'll see how that pans out, but that certainly will be something that will be discussed and will be addressed. So I don't think the VHS and its accompanying transcript is the best evidence. The best evidence is the live witness who's already testified. And finally, I just wanted to indicate on on number 23, which was the booking photo. Like I said, it doesn't add anything, Judge. There's no issue of identification in this case. None. I mean, nobody's going to stand up here and say Mr. Spector is not Mr. Spector. It's not even an issue, and I don't think that there's going to be a necessity for this court to instruct in the area of identification, and you're not going to have to pull out any of the identification instructions from CalPrint, okay? So that's not an issue. And I don't think, in closing argument, you're going to hear from the defense side that anybody's going to say that it wasn't Mr. Spector in terms of how it fits into the defense theory or how it fits into the government theory. But if you look at that photo, Mr. Dixon is quite right. It does show from about, it's a V-neck T-shirt, and it does show from the V-neck T-shirt up. I'm not sure exactly where it strikes him or it cuts off. But it's not the V-neck T-shirt that we're concerned about. It's the composite of the face and the head. If you look at it, it is about as unflattering a photo as you could have. And if that were the only photo, I think we'd be on a little bit thinner ice. But since you do have Government Exhibit 38, and it's not as unflattering by any means, and it's actually a full shot, and there's no question it's Mr. Spector, and he's in the clothes, I think that if the court were to sustain the defense objection to 23, the government's really lost nothing. Maybe they even gained something, I don't know. But it certainly is a photo that if you look at it, it doesn't, I don't think it brings out warm, fuzzy, cozy feelings. Not that that's what an exhibit is supposed to do. I acknowledge that. But
Is that a noted objection in the evidence?
I'm looking for it. I'll be studying the evidence.
Okay.
I'll be sleeping with it on my pillow this evening. But I know the court understands what I'm saying. It's just a very unflattering photo, and it's not necessary since they have 38.
Okay. In looking at all the objections, and I'm not going to sustain the objection, but I am going to indicate what I'm going to do. The objections are overruled. I don't find that, start with 23, that although it may be unflattering, it hardly rises to a 352 objection. It does have some probative value. There's nothing that unduly prejudicial about it. The people should not be allowed to introduce it. It does have some probative value, and therefore, since I don't find the prejudicial value that you do, I'm going to allow it. The transcripts are my most pressing issue, and I'll tell you how I'm going to deal with that. The other objections are overruled. As to the transcripts, I'm going to do the same thing that I did when we played various either tapes, CDs, or VHSs for the jury, is to tell them that the best evidence is the words that were said. The transcripts are merely there to aid them if they want. The jury doesn't have to listen to or view tapes if they don't want to. They heard the tapes, they listened to the tapes, they looked at the transcripts, they're allowed to use those as an aid, and that's all it is. The very best evidence will be what's on the tape if they feel they need it. If they have to resolve an issue, it's what they hear as opposed to what's stated in the transcript. It's certainly, we encourage transcripts to be attached to any exhibit that either purports to replay a conversation or to show an interview. The transcripts, anytime there's words, in fact, that's our local rule, is to have a transcript that must accompany the exhibit. So the transcripts will go in, but I will give a limiting instruction or a further instruction to the jury at the time I instruct them.
On the theory of never give up, I'm going to make just a passing thought on it.
Okay.
Thank you. Right. Would the court consider as an alternative holding the transcripts back but indicating to the jury that should they need them in terms of listening to the DVD or the CD or the tape, they should send out a request form and they can be provided at that time and then give the limiting instruction? Just a thought.
Just a thought. You asked if I would consider it. I have. Will I grant your request? No. All right.
Okay.
Okay. You want to move into the 1118.1?
Sure.
Okay.
We're going to be just very, very brief on that, Your Honor. We want to make a motion. Mr. Spector would apply to the court for a motion pursuant to 1118.1 of the Penal Code for a motion to dismiss the charges. And basically, it's going to be on two grounds. One ground is going to be based on insufficiency of the evidence, and that will be submitted. And the second ground will be we are going to urge this court to take its discretionary power under 1118 and reduce the charges from a 187 to a 192 based on the fact that we believe that, and keeping in mind that we've heard from the defense case, but this is retroactive to the point where they've rested their case, and we can't consider the defense case for this particular 1118. That comes at the close of the defense case. And we believe that the evidence that's been presented is more consistent. If you look at the government's evidence, which is required by law, that's slightly in favor of them.
Yeah, it's fucking good. What episode you on?
They have not even shown implied malice here, which is necessary. They haven't met the three elements, and therefore we would ask the court to exercise its power.
I want to poke your mom. Shelley coming in here.
The charges from a 187 to a 192, and we'd submit it.
Thank you. People?
Thank you, Your Honor. For the most part, we'll submit on our moving papers. It's pretty fully laid out the facts and circumstances that rise to the level of the test for an 1118.1 motion. That test being whether from the evidence, including all reasonable inferences that can be drawn therefrom, there's any substantial evidence, and I think that's the key phrase, any substantial evidence of the existence of each element of the offense charged. And I'll address specifically Mr. Rosen's motion concerning the 187. Certainly,
VHS show right now.
That's something that could be addressed in jury
VHS
instructions at a
misfits.
later time, whether or not there is a 192 that would be relevant for any or all parties to discuss. But certainly for the court to take the extraordinary measure to actually reduce the charged offense down to a 192, I would simply point out to the court that in order to prove an implied malice, we need only prove that the defendant committed an intentional act that that act had a natural consequence of which was dangerous, or which was dangerous to human life, that the defendant knew that the act was dangerous to human life and that he acted in disregard for that danger and committed the act anyway. The act is pointing a loaded firearm at another human being. In this state, here in California, if you intentionally point a loaded firearm at another human being, and that firearm discharges intentionally or unintentionally, if you sneeze and the gun goes off, that meets the requirement for an implied malice murder. Certainly the evidence in this case strongly supports the inferences about what happened inside that foyer. The 1101B evidence shows very clearly what was going on through the defendant's past conduct. He's done it over and over and over with Dorothy Melvin, Stephanie Jennings, Melissa Grosvenor, Diane Ogden. When he gets upset, when he loses what he perceives
Hey,
to
Joe,
be
thanks. I got
control
my
of the
portal right now
situation,
set up to go to
when
you
he's been
guys. I
drinking,
will change it up to Jessica for Justice if she comes through, because last night I had told her that she was planning on doing one at 12:30 and I would send some folks in. But if she doesn't come through or set that up, I'm going to be sending to you guys. So
with a woman, he has her alone, he gets violent. And that's exactly what happened in the foyer. Certainly when he got violent in this case, he reverted to his old standard, which was to pull a weapon that was hidden in a bureau inside his holster, inside his home, loaded with his bullets. And he pulled that gun and ended up exerting his will, if you will, on Lana Clarkson. That gun ended up in her mouth, and whether it went off intentionally because he pulled the trigger saying to himself, I'm going to finally make good on my promise, that promise being women deserve a bullet in their head, or whether he sneezed, or whether she slapped his hand, or whether there was a slight tremor and an earthquake and the gun went off. It doesn't matter how the gun went off. He intentionally pointed it at her and ended up putting it in her mouth, and when it went off, that finally allowed his promise to come true, that at some point he was going to put a bullet in the woman's head, and she died. The elements of the murder charge are certainly met, and there is, as the phrase goes under the Penal Code section 1118.1, there is substantial evidence to support this, and we would ask the court to deny, with respect, Mr. Rosen's motion.
Thank you, Mr. Rosen.
We'll see that, Your Honor.
All right. All I do at this point, obviously, is to look at the legal standard and see whether or not it's been met. I've listened very intently to all the witnesses that have been presented during the people's case in chief. It's very clear to me that for the purpose of 1118.1 of the Penal Code, and that's the only purpose that I'm considering, that there's more than enough substantial evidence to support a conviction if there was one, which actually is the test. If the case was to go to appeal, would it support it? And the answer is yes, there is substantial evidence to let this matter go forward to the jury on the charge of murder, so therefore the motion is denied. All right, I'll see you at 1:30. Yes.
Mr. Portnoy, we could, I know it's past 12.
It's all right.
But we did have one issue that...
He's like, I'm ready to get some lunch, baby.
Mean that we don't take time away from the jury.
Sure.
There's a witness that they've told us they're going to call this afternoon. His name is Greg Sims. We were just told about this person. I believe Mr. Campo heard about it either
and I'll
last
share that out
Saturday
also on X
or Sunday.
for you guys.
We do have a report, but literally we were just
That's
given this.
fucking
The report's
teamwork.
dated July 19th. We
Hell
just
yeah.
haven't
Get
had
another
enough
sub
time
over there.
to do the kind of background that we need to do in preparation for a witness in this case. We would ask that perhaps this witness could go off for a week or at least a few days so we have some more time with this witness.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Port.
We're sort of backed up against it with this. The history of this witness is essentially very simple. He's basically a person that's involved in independent films, music. He's basically a middle class or upper middle class individual who knew Lana Clarkson through Miss Pie from years ago. We had heard about him through the other witnesses. We tried to contact him a number of times over the last couple of months. And just to put it simply, he didn't return our calls. He, basically was not very cooperative. And essentially what happened is that we got word that last week he was going to be at a particular music event. We just showed up and we served him with a subpoena a week ago Tuesday to be here at 1:30 today. Shortly thereafter, like
missed that.
Wednesday, he called us and said, look, he contacted a lawyer about this, and the lawyer basically advised him to say, sit down, talk to us, show up for the subpoena, respond to the subpoena.
This dude plured?
That happened last Thursday. We got a report.
I don't hate this dude. This
to
dude's
people
alright.
last Friday. I
He's very
told
thorough,
Mr. Campo that we found
but he's not
this
as, like,
person, gave him his
dickish
name and
as,
so forth. I actually scanned and emailed
Rosin.
the report that we got on Friday.
Rosin
to
just
the
comes
people
off
that
like a
day.
scumbag,
It was late in the
dude.
day, but nonetheless, they
Everyone's nice.
So they've only had it for a short period of time. I don't deny that.
Rubs
That's
me
because
all
we just
wrong.
got it. But basically, we have a report.
He molested my
basically says
senses,
something
and I don't
somewhat
like it.
similar to Miss Hayes and Miss Laughlin, Pumpkin Pie, whatever we call her. And I've got a 2-page report here. That's the same report I gave the people that I could submit to the court to review. The problem that we're having is that the court, and pursuant to a request of the people, did not allow us, when we put our pathologists on, to basically have the pathologists consider and review information from third-party witnesses like Ms. Hayes, et cetera, and we had to put them on. So we have Dr. Spitz, who we brought in, and he's on our list, and we told him we were going to put Mr. Sims on today. We told him that Friday, we told him that yesterday, and right before we put on a few other witnesses, and then Dr. Spitz, who is coming up either late today or first thing tomorrow. And so that would interrupt that schedule. What he says is nothing extraordinary. It's something, along the same lines as the other witnesses. This is not a situation where we feel this guy has any background at all that has any questions or problems or whatever, at least from what we can tell. And we would ask to be able to go forward with him. Mr. Rosen has a present for him. He came back and he's going to meet with him, actually try to meet with him right before he testifies, just to confirm what's in the report, which we have no question about. I think Mr. Rosen would like to make a brief offer of proof as to what he would testify about specifically, and that way the court would know what we're dealing with. But we feel that we really need to go forward with him.
I would just like to see the report rather than hear a verbal offer of proof.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I'd like to just hand it up to the court. You can look at it over the noon hour.
I'll do it right now if you want.
Well,
Is it lengthy?
well, the thing is,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I haven't even spoken to this individual. I haven't met this individual. I'm supposed to meet with him actually very shortly here, so I can just review the report with him. But there's nothing in here that's new or different than what we haven't seen through Mr. Behrens, Mr. Shapiro, Ms. Clark, Ms. Laughlin, and Ms. Hayes. But let me give the court a moment to look at this.
But I just impose another objection and let it act cumulative.
Well, I don't think that argument's going to be successful, but several, in my view, and it's not controlling, several of these witnesses come with certain baggage, and the bottom line, I think the defense has to be allowed to put on these witnesses and allow the jury to make a determination whether any or all of them are credible, and I think that's important, so the cumulative objection would be overruled.
And just
I'm sort of making an assumption based on what I've been told as to what's in here, but let me read it.
I was just saying, he's been completely uncooperative, and as far as we know, he has no baggage.
Okay. Okay, I've read the report. What exactly, when did you start investigating this witness I'm speaking?
I found out about this on Monday, Mr. Campo, and he's not here. I think he either told me he got an email, received the email either Saturday or Sunday about it. That's all we know about it. That's when we started thinking about this witness, and as you can see, the report's dated July 19th.
Yeah, just for the record, I verbally talked with Mr. Ocampo on Friday, said we're adding this person to the list. I sent him a letter adding his name to the list. The report was actually not finished.
Oh, thanks,
until
Charlie.
late.
Appreciate that. I just posted I posted a video yesterday on YouTube. My first breakout from the 764 Colt that I'm doing a deep dive on, and I was looking at some comments in there, but I just now posted that up on X, in just video form for that channel as well. Let me fix this for you guys real quick. Tiff, thanks for coming in here. Appreciate it. Good morning.
Later on Friday, but I gave him a verbal rendition of what the guy said, and he had his name and contact information.
Fajitas.
And then I emailed him the report late Friday, so he may not have gotten it until Saturday, but that's just the way it came down. And I
got to get some groceries today too.
What I'm going to do,
I got a lot to do
you
today,
can have a
actually.
choice. You
Got to
can,
finish my
I'm
video
gonna
that I
allow
want
them
out
to
for
call the witness
wrestling.
so they can get their doctor on. You, however, may defer your
Should be
cross-examination
about ready to
in its
rock. That
entirety,
should drop today
or you
on the
may
second
begin to
channel.
cross-examine, and it's with other witnesses, we won't excuse them. So it's up to you. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
1:30. There you are. I'll give this to Wendy. Okay.
Where are we going next? Just to see here. An hour and a half. Greg Sims, an independent filmmaker and a friend of Lana Clarkson, takes the stand. Let's dive in here. Let's keep rolling for a little bit. After this one, I'll probably call her a moron.
All right.
Let's kill another one.
Parties, jurors, and alternates are present as heretofore. Ladies and gentlemen, just to bring you up to date on the, some of you may be tracking the number of exhibits. The people's exhibits have been received with the exception of numbers 41, 53, 56, 60, and the court has not yet made a determination on 155 through 165. Those are still being held in abeyance. So those are the exhibits that are being received, which are the ones that you will have to consider. Basically, 41, 53, 56, and 60 will not be submitted to you. All right. Are you ready to proceed?
We are going.
Yes, sir.
All right. You may proceed.
Thank you. We call Greg Sims.
Okay.
Please raise your right hand to be sworn. You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated. Please state and spell your first and last name for the record.
Greg Sims,
Could you spell it, please?
Gregory, legal name Sims, S-I-M-S.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Sims, good afternoon, and thank you, sir, for joining us here today. Before we get started, could you take the microphone and just kind of move it up to you? Just use it like you would a telephone so that we can make sure that everybody in the courtroom here hears you.
Not too good with this, but how's that?
That's fine. Just maybe a little bit closer. There we go. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Sims, just a couple of things before we get started here. It's very important that you let me finish my question before you answer, and it's equally important that I don't, to borrow Mr. Jackson's words, step on your words when you're answering, because otherwise we don't get what's called a clean record, and Diana can't take us at the same time. So although you may think I have finished or completed my question, make sure that I pause, and then you'll know I'm finished, and likewise with you, okay? And also, I just want to let you know, if you don't understand any of my questions, please feel free to just let me know that, okay?
Okay.
All right. Mr. Sims, would you share with us, please, and tell the jury, what is your profession, sir?
I'm an independent film producer and a personal manager.
Okay. And could you just tell us a little bit about your credentials and a little bit about your accomplishments in that profession, please? Just turn to the jury and tell them.
Sure. I produce what we like to call high-end independent movies that are lower budget but get out in the marketplace like bigger, more expensive films. I produced a film called Touch Me that was the first starring role for Amanda Peet and Michael Vartan. It was an opening film for the Toronto International Film Festival, and it was the highest-rated independent film
this
to
guy's
air on
name.
Lifetime at the time. I produced a feature called Red Surf that had a fair amount of critical acclaim, and it was the first above-the-title role for George Clooney.
Clooney. I remember George Clooney from Roseanne.
I distributed a movie called Suddenly Naked,
remember
which is
George Clooney on
a
Roseanne.
comedy that was nominated for 6 Genies, which is the Canadian Academy Award. It's a PG comedy. And on the management side, years ago I managed primarily actors. I was the partner and manager of Nancy McKeon for 10 years when she was the star of a show called The Facts of Life, which at the time was a top 10 show, and she had the highest TVQ of any actress on television. And in the last few years, I've been focusing on the music side of the business, and I've been managing
Independent
one of,
filmmaker.
the more successful superstar artists in Europe, and I was
Phil.
got a platinum record for doing that.
I'll
last
give you a
year.
live shot.
And there's a few other things.
The Ghoul.
That's
Okay.
a few.
The
I
goal.
think we get a sense of your accomplishments. Thank you. Mr. Sims, are you here today voluntarily, or were you subpoenaed?
I was subpoenaed.
And the defense subpoenaed you, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You were subpoenaed by our investigator, Tawny Tyndall, is that correct?
Yes.
And do you see Ms. Tyndall in court here?
Yes.
She's in the front row. Tawny, would you stand up just for a moment? Is this the, I should say, lovely defense investigator that served you?
That is correct.
Thank you. Prior to her serving you, and by the way...
Back in a rosin
when did she serve you?
territory.
It was just
Mother
last
of
week, wasn't
God.
It was last week.
Okay. Did you know that Ms. Tyndall and the defense were trying to get a hold of you before then?
I was aware that she was trying to get a hold of me.
Okay. And did you cooperate in trying to get back to her when she was trying to get a hold of you until she subpoenaed you?
I cooperated to the extent that I returned her phone calls, but I was not obviously anxious to participate.
Okay. Would it be fair to say you really don't want to be here today?
That would be incredibly fair, yes.
Okay. Well, the bad news is you're not the first witness to have said that in this case. Okay. Mr. Sims, I want to turn your attention back to the period of time in the late 1990s, okay? And directing your attention to that time, did you know a young lady by the name of Pumpkin Pie?
Yes.
Did you know a lady by the name of Lana Clarkson?
Yes.
And how did you come to know them?
Well, Pi was actually did a small role in a film that I produced, a movie called To Die For, that was a horror film that was somewhat successful and spawned a sequel, and we were friends after that.
Okay. And as a result of your friendship, did you learn how do you know her also as Elizabeth Waughlin?
I know her as Pi. Okay. I mean, I know her name, but she's always Pi.
Okay. With the court's permission, may I just refer to her as Pi for the purposes of this witness? Thank you. And did you come to learn that Pi, in fact, had a particular business?
Yes. Actually, in the earlier years when I knew her, I really only knew her as being in our film, and we became friendly. And it was in the later years that I knew about what was going on with Backstage and the promotions and so forth.
Tell us a little bit about, if you would turn to the jury, tell them a little bit about what Backstage was about and your experience with Backstage.
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled.
Overruled.
When judge is overruled, it means you may answer the question.
Yes, sir. Backstage is an interesting environment because I would compare it to a sort of a pub for the industry, in the sense that a lot of people in the industry don't like to go to big flashy nightclubs, and they like to have a place there they can interact with people on a smaller, calmer level. And so Backstage is a place where people who have these crazy lives in the business can often go and have some continuity, especially the way Pi runs her Tuesday nights, where there'll be faces that you'll see, new people that you'll meet, and it's a little bit of a pub-like friendly continuity in people's lives. I mean, I don't know that I can be more articulate than that.
That's fine. You don't mind. When did you start going to the Backstage events?
I started going the night they opened because I also knew the founder and the owner, Ian Copeland, well, and I knew several people who were investors in it as well. So it's a small world, but there were a lot of ties to it.
And when was that? Just rough. I'm not asking.
Roughly, it would have to be 96 or 97.
Mr. Sims, you know what I asked now? I'm sorry. Finish? Please, sir. Thank you. I don't need the exact second, minute, or hour, just roughly in approximation time.
I'm approximating 1997.
Okay. And I mentioned two names. I mentioned Pumpkin Pie, and I mentioned another name, Lana Clarkson.
Yes.
Did you know Lana Clarkson, or did you come to know Lana Clarkson?
Yes.
Where did you meet her?
Initially at Backstage.
Okay. And can you tell me approximately, Mr. Sims, when was that? Again, not the moment in time, but just roughly when was that?
Somewhere in the late 90s.
Okay. And did you have a relationship with Miss Clark? Well, let me start with this. Did you have a relationship with Pumpkin Pie up to and including February 3rd of 2003?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. How about Lana Clarkson? You said you met her in the late 90s. Did you maintain a relationship with her between then and up to February 3rd of 03?
There was a friendship. She wasn't my best friend. She was Pi's best friend. But there was a certain amount of closeness that happens when you see people on a regular basis over the years.
Okay. Would you tell the jury, and if you could please describe for them, how the relationship was between you and Lana?
You know, it was a cordial relationship. It was fun. I imagine that there's been a lot of description about backstage, so it goes on sometimes till closing hours, and we would share 3 or 4 friends in common that I can think of that we would regularly talk with and have fun and
judgy
catch up
face.
on things, and occasionally that would happen outside of
facts
backstage
life.
too, because we all had lives that existed outside of backstage.
In the years that you knew Lana, in the years that you had this relationship with her, was there ever a romantic relationship, or was it more of a platonic relationship?
No, I've been married up until next week, so it was absolutely platonic.
Okay, well. And during that time, how often would you say you saw Lana on, say, a weekly or a daily or a monthly basis?
Dude, I fucking hate this guy.
Maybe an average once a month. There could be 3 times in a month. There could be maybe, I travel a lot, so there could be periods where I wouldn't see anybody in the United States for a while.
Okay, so when you were here, it could vary between once a month, 3 times a month. It all depended. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. I want to direct your attention now to approximately a period of time, to 1 week within February 3rd of 2003, okay? And I want to turn your attention to Century City, if I may. At that time, did you find yourself in the area of Century City?
Yes.
Okay, and that's in Los Angeles County on the west side, is that correct?
Yes.
And what brought you to Century City at that time?
Well, initially, I had an office in Century City for many years. But
Okay.
I also was in the process of taking an office in downtown LA. And the tenants in that office didn't move out, and I was told it could be 2 or 3 months to figure something out in the interim. And so I had structured a deal with St. Regis, which had just taken over the tower of the Century Plaza Hotel, which still exists. But at the time, the tower of the Century Plaza converted to a hotel called the St. Regis, and I made a deal with them wherein we would, I would have a couple of days a week where I would work out of there and also live out of there.
All right. And just in case there are some of us who don't know what the St. Regis is, what was that?
It was, a lot of us think the best hotel in Los Angeles. It was a hotel.
It no longer exists, is that correct?
Correct. They sold it and tore it down. They're turning it into condominiums.
I think the backers of that would be a little upset with you if you didn't say luxury condominiums.
Yes.
Okay. Turning your attention then to this same period of time, 1 week prior, within the period of 1 week prior to February 3rd of 03. Was there an impromptu party that took place at your suite or your residence at the hotel?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Directing it to the jury?
Yes, just turn to the jury and tell them what happened.
A group of people came over from backstage after, somewhere toward later in the evening, and it's one of those things where people say, hey, let's go over here, and 5 people go over, 10 people go over, and it wound up being somewhere around 40 people. And it was just an impromptu get-together.
Oh, and was that in your suite at the St. Regis?
It was.
And was Pumpkin Pie there?
Yes.
And at some point, did Pie leave?
She did.
Okay. Was Lana Clarkson there?
Yes.
And others?
Quite a few others I know, because the minibar at some point was raided and became empty, so there were quite a few people.
And during that impromptu party, did there come a time after a number of hours when people left?
Yes.
Did somebody remain?
Yes.
Was that Lana?
Yes.
Do you remember when Lana remained and everyone else left, what happened?
It was a gradual period where, a few people leave here and there, and there's maybe 4, 5, 6 people left, and then eventually, it got late and everybody left, and it was just Lana and I talking.
Okay. Where were you and she speaking in the suite?
We were in the bedroom of the suite, but we were just talking, sitting on the bed talking.
Okay, fully clothed.
Fully clothed.
All right. And how long did you speak with Lana that evening, Mr. Sims?
A couple of hours.
Okay. And it was just you and she, is that right?
Yes.
What was she like that evening? Describe for us what you witnessed, what you saw.
Well, at the beginning of the evening, she was like the person that, I knew over the years, outgoing, fun, and striking. Through the course of the evening, she became somber and outwardly demonstrative about, just emotional.
Did that cause you and she to have conversation?
Yes.
Share with us what Lana told you.
Well, in the context of this being quite a few years ago, she talked a lot about, I think, a general state of unhappiness with things that we all talk about, the business, people. I recall her talking about hating everybody in the business. That's not an unusual thing because we all say that at some point.
She mentioned anything to you about, did she say anything about
Objection leading.
It's just focusing it on a certain area. If it doesn't have too much material, I can't really tell till the question's finished, so overruled at this time.
Thank you.
We'll see. Go ahead.
Did she speak to you about people in this town, referring to Los Angeles and the business?
Yes.
Tell the jury what she said.
Well, again, keeping in context the age of this conversation, I recall a tearful conversation about, everybody in the town being motherfuckers, that it was, hard. She was having a hard time. A lot of what I recall was a general state of unhappiness where someone has, perhaps been drinking a lot and starts to repeat themselves and talk about the same thing because they're feeling it really deeply. But I would say the kind of thing that if you had a guy friend who was repeating himself, you want to slap him, but when it's a girl, you feel like you want to reach out and be a little more understanding about what they're going through.
More comforting.
Yes.
You used you made a statement a moment ago in your answer. You said perhaps drinking. Did you observe Lana to consume any alcoholic beverage that evening?
Yes.
Describe for us what you saw her drinking.
I can only tell you that I recall her drinking, and I remember we were, I think, toward the end of the evening because the minibar had been taken over and was raided. I think there was maybe a bottle of wine or two that they keep in the rooms that you open up. Maybe it was scotch. I honestly, I just don't have a 100% clear memory, but it was alcohol, if that's what the question is.
Let me ask you this. When Lana first
Morning,
arrived
Bob.
that evening, what was the state of her inebriation when she first came into the suite?
Less.
Okay. By the end of the evening, when she left, and during the time that you were speaking with her, having this conversation seated on the bed, what was the state of her inebriation?
Well, understand that this is difficult because I guess it's not relevant. She was.
Debbie?
That's the last foundation, Sheriff.
No, I think it's a lay opinion. He can offer a lay opinion of whether or not she appeared to be inebriated, which is what I understand the question to be.
She had gotten past the point of really functioning clearly. She was not, walk clearly. She was pretty gone. She was in a bad state by that point.
When you say you said a moment she was pretty gone, what do you mean by that?
She was intoxicated.
When you were talking to her, did there come a time when you were speaking to her on the bed when she started to cry?
Yes.
And when she started to cry, did that sort of continue for a period of time?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. What were you and she talking about when she started to cry?
Unhappiness. Boy, to be specific, I have to caution by saying it's the best of my recollection.
We understand.
Is that she was talking about everything from unhappiness with her place in the business, things that had gone on. I don't really remember all the details because we all hear this a lot from all of our friends. It unfortunately is kind of common. And I remember talking about, I have 2 kids, and I think that there was some level of wanting children and talking about people that had kids and had that fulfillment, and that was something that was missing.
Ah,
Yes.
the ghoul makes an appearance. Eh, ghoulie, 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 ghoulie. Eh, ghoulie, 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 ghoulie.
When she was talking with you in this state,
I was talking about Raza.
you indicated that, I guess it was a number of hours that you spoke with her after people had left and it was just you and
Morning,
she
Tina.
chatting.
It was quite a while.
And would it be fair to say that she was opening up to you as you were talking with her?
Yes.
She discussed her career
Hell
with you,
yeah.
did she?
Somewhat.
What did she tell you? She was happy with where it was, unhappy? What did she tell you?
Yeah, we are in the Phil Spector purgatory, is what this is.
She was unhappy.
Can be brutal.
Did she discuss her personal life with you?
Somewhat, but I
How did she describe that? Happy, unhappy?
think she was generally unhappy. I mean, yeah.
Is there more to your answer? Did you want to add something?
Lana was a really outgoing, fun, loving person. She was a good person, and sometimes those two things can coincide. There can be great unhappiness, and sometimes it isn't something they show to a lot of people. And I think I caught her on a night when she was just really feeling badly about things. But as a human being, as a person, she was a really good, overall good person.
Good human being.
Yeah.
Would it be fair to say, in light of your last answer, that they were kind of like, that night, she really let you see inside her? Is that a fair statement?
Sustain. I think it's too overbroad as well. Sustain.
Let me pinpoint it. Did you think, as you were having this conversation with her, which I understand went for several hours, is that correct?
Somewhere in it. It was lengthy.
Did you think she was being honest with you?
Yes.
Did you think she was being open with you?
Yes.
Objection, that calls for speculation.
Sustain.
Did you feel that she was putting on an act when you had this conversation with her?
Objection, calling for speculation.
Sustain.
Let's talk about, if we can, pumpkin pie.
Let's talk about pumpkin
Wait, before we
pie.
go there, let me ask you.
She was entertaining. I did like that one.
That night that
I recall that she had something.
Whether your opinion was
okay.
negative
When
or
you were seated
not,
on the
she was at least entertaining.
bed with her, do you recall if she had her purse or her bag with her?
Pumpkin pie through the parties. She claimed to be Lana's best friend.
Let's turn to pumpkin pie.
Talked about how she
You
was
indicated
depressed.
that you met
She
Lana
talked
through the
about
backstage, is
offing
that correct?
herself.
Correct.
But you had known Pie.
Well, through pie, yes.
Yes. You said through Pie. Can you explain that?
Me and old pumpkin pie,
Sure,
man. We used to run around
pie,
in back alleys.
I'm not sure that people understand.
We'd
what
get
she
into
does
some
in
shit, let me
promoting.
tell you.
She sort of fosters
Okay.
this environment where a lot of people who are
Morning.
both accomplished. and
You're in there on
maybe
Fro
new
Friday, wasn't you, on Kick?
Come together in her
I gotta
place
pull
and
some clips out,
interact
especially
and,
the
start
clip when the
friendships
20-year-old
and
was with the
relationships. So it's
13-year-old in the parking lot. That was
sort of
crazy.
As I described before. I mean, you
Said it
she's
so
a little later
nonchalantly.
in life,
And then he kissed her.
Yeah, I guess that's not my place to.
It was crazy.
Comment. Yeah, I mean, the best that I could say is that she sort of provides a valuable function in the business where sometimes people only meet people in an office and it's limited, and at night you have a chance to open up those relationships in a more casual setting. You never know who you're going to meet. That's sort of the thing there. You just never know when you go there who's going to wind.
Crazily enough, the video that I pulled out of the 764 Cult live stream that I did last Thursday, pulled out like an introduction and, you know, one of the bad actors that we're introducing here before we go further. And I'll plan on continuing to do live streams. I already got episode 2 written out, and I will continue to pull out little episodic ventures from these live streams. But yeah, the first one that I uploaded on YouTube yesterday, you know, whatever, but I just now uploaded it in its full length on Twitter, on X, and man, it's already gotten way more traction on there than it did it all on YouTube.
End up being there, and you know what friendships you might make,
crazy.
And what interesting people you might meet.
You use the word friendships. What did you witness in terms of the friendship between Pi and Lana?
Jackson Black's foundation.
Overruled. You may answer.
And it was clear to me from the beginning, but certainly over a period of time, that they were best friends.
And this was sometime from the late 90s till the date of February 3rd of 2003.
Yes.
Okay. Tell us what you witnessed, what you saw that showed you that they were best friends.
Camaraderie.
It's been a while. We have, though.
You know, women best friends act differently. They, you know, lean into each other and giggle and hold each other and kiss each other and tell stories and, you know, talk to each other on the phone 24 hours a day.
What was Lana's, how would you describe Lana's overall feelings and attitudes that evening at the St. Regis when the two of you were sitting having a close conversation?
Jackson asked and answered.
I believe it was asked and answered. If you have some specific area you want to go into.
That's true. I think we looked at that on that live. If I remember correctly, we pulled up her Instagram. Yeah, she's still partying.
Used to describe what you witnessed in Lana's appearance that
Pumpkin pie, don't stop. It's got pictures up of Lana on there.
Despair.
Okay. Anything else?
Just, it was a bad night for us.
It's Phil Spector. Greg Sims, is Phil Spector paying you to sit up here and say these things? Huh?
When you use the word despair, explain to the jury what you mean.
Well, I don't know that I could read anything more into it than that. I mean, we all, I can't speak for anybody else. I know that I and a lot of friends occasionally hit it.
Irrelevant.
Yeah, well, as soon as I heard read into it, at this point I'm going to sustain the objection.
Let me ask it this way. In terms of using the word despair, what did you see Lana do or say that evening that causes you to use that term to describe her when you were talking with her at the suite at the St. Regis?
Maybe reaching a certain level of sadness, hitting a wall in her personal life.
Do you recall having any discussions with her that evening about any male friends that may or may not have popped up on the radar screen romantically?
Generically, vaguely. I mean, I think vaguely recall maybe there was something in the recent past.
Jackson, call it for speculation.
He's indicating his best recollection, so I'll allow it.
Thank you.
My best recollection is there had been something in the recent past that may have been a disappointment or
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you a name, and if it rings a bell, fine. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Does the name LB, initials LB, Moon, does that ring a bell at all?
Vague bell, maybe conversation among her and Pi. Maybe I can't honestly trace it to that night.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Let me turn to another area or another subject that was discussed that evening. Did you discuss with Lana that evening at all about therapy, getting help?
I made a comment about it.
Okay, what did you say and what did she say?
Told her I thought she needed to maybe reach outward beyond herself and find some help for what she was feeling, because I thought it was, profound.
Okay, and what was her response?
A lot of crying.
Yo, Simi. Morning. Glad you
Did there
came through here.
time
Been a slow start this
when
morning.
somebody
I didn't know if anybody was
arrived at the
coming.
suite for Lana?
Yes, at the very end of the evening.
Okay. Do you have a recollection of approximately what time it is? I don't, I know you're not looking at your watch, but just a rough idea of when that was.
Could have been 3 or 3:30 in the morning.
Who was that person who arrived?
It was Pi.
Okay. Now, as I understand it, Pi had left the party earlier that evening, is that right?
That is correct.
And she had been gone a number of hours?
Morning,
I don't remember how
Strychnine.
long. She was gone for a while.
Okay. But then she returned
You're right, Brooklyn.
in the early morning hours of the next day, 3:30 for Lana, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Did she come into the suite?
She did.
Lana was still there and you were there?
Yes.
What happened?
As I recall, I believe Pi may have had somebody downstairs who was driving, and she came and told Lana that it was time to go. She needed to leave.
And what was Lana's response to that?
She was not in a great state. She was reluctant, as I recall, to leave. She was comfortable just sitting and I don't think wanted to go anywhere, but she did leave with her.
Okay. Can you describe for us how she left? When I say how she left, I'm talking about her mobility.
She was impaired.
Okay. When you say she was impaired, what did you witness? What did you see that makes you say that?
She was having difficulty walking a straight line, as somebody could be when they had a lot to drink.
Was there anyone in the room that had to assist her walk?
Pi helped her.
Okay. Give me just a sense of distance, if you would. This is a suite, so the rooms are interconnected. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And how many rooms are in this suite?
2 bedroom. It's a bedroom, a living room, 2 bathrooms. It was a 1,250 square feet. I remember just because it was the one that I always had. It was a regular room.
Okay. If you are, Mayor,
Yes.
if you are, I'm going to place you, if I can, for a moment on the bed, okay? And Lonnie, you were sitting here chatting. And Pi comes in about 3:30 in the morning, is that right? Mm-hmm. All right. You two you have to say yes or no. Mm-hmm. It doesn't come out of the record. It's okay. All right. And when Pi comes in, do you get up and get off the bed and go to the door, or does Pi just come through the door?
She came through the door, but I also got up and walked with him to the elevator.
Okay. Did Lana remain on the bed? At the point where Pi came in?
Yes.
All right. And then does Pi come over to the bed where Lana is seated?
Yes.
Does Pi help her get up off the bed?
Yes.
How far do we walk? Just use the measurements here in the courtroom. How far did Pi and she have to walk till they got to the front door?
Well, there's a door to the bedroom that's probably maybe 12 feet, and then...
Okay, I'll tell you, just position me about where the door is, and I'll just keep walking back if I don't stumble here.
And right now, a little further back, maybe 2 feet further back.
Yeah. 12 feet?
12 to 15 feet.
Okay. And then how much further?
Another 8 or 9 feet to the entry to the suite,
So back here.
at least,
Okay, and maybe even beyond into the spectator area.
roughly.
Okay, and my question is this. Am I correct that Pi had to assist her the entire way from where you were seated on the bed all the way out to wherever that front door was?
As I recall, I mean, honestly, I didn't take
Okay.
a record of every step, but
Sure.
it was my recollection because I felt compelled to walk them to the elevator, make sure everybody was okay. It was just kind of it was an awkward...
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I did what I told you not to do. I apologize. Go ahead.
It was an awkward moment, so.
Every moment of Rosin's life is awkward.
You felt a sense of responsibility to make sure they got out okay.
Yeah, I felt bad. I mean, it wasn't a fun, it didn't wind up as a fun evening, you know? I mean, I felt badly.
I like that you're shouting out Kathy and Pumpkin, Sibby.
I have a couple of other
Oh,
areas
Pumpkin's
I just want to
watching.
cover, and then Mr. Dixon probably will be talking to you for a bit and asking you some questions. When you spoke with Lana that evening, did she discuss with you at all about a particular play that she had
About
lost a role
killing
in?
herself? Did she say that she
can't
wanted to do
say.
that? You heard that? Is that right? Am I understanding that
I
correctly?
believe she might have, but I can't say with 100% certainty.
Okay, you just don't recall.
I don't know.
All right, that's fine. I want to ask you about Pi. We fixed the date of February 3rd as the date that Lana passed away. Moving forward from that, further into the year 2003, 2004, did you maintain contact with Pi?
Yes.
I want you to share with the jury what she was like after Lana's death.
Objection irrelevant.
She was fucking wasted, bro. Let me tell you. I ain't never hung out with Pie. She didn't have a little toot in her fucking pocket, bro.
Pi's a friend, even though I think there's been a caricature painted to some degree, and I saw her go from somebody who was an awful lot of fun and a happy person over the course of a couple of years to somebody who was so depressed that she had trouble getting out of bed and doing anything. And I would call her on a fairly regular basis and ask if there was anything I could do. And, you know, I'm not her best friend, although I would consider a close friend, and sometimes, you know, you feel guilty that you don't do more, but she was
I'm
clearly
not in the MySpace top 8.
had an incredibly
But we
rough
liked
go
each other.
and became a very different person than she was. I know that it devastated her. That's something that I could see over the years.
I apologize for asking this question, but when you say you know that it was something that devastated her, what do you mean by it?
Lana's death.
Ghoul alert.
And just one final area. Do you recall any discussions with Lana? Strike that. Do you recall during the discussion with Lana at the St. Regis within about a week before February 3rd, did she just bring up her family or discuss her family with you at all?
Very vague recollection that might have been discussed. There was.
What did she, I'm sorry.
It's a sense. It's not a. I don't recollect a specific.
If you don't recall specifics, we can't get into senses.
Okay.
Okay. May I have the court's indulgence for just a moment, please?
All right.
Just one final thing. During this couple of hours that you were chatting with her that evening, you were having this conversation. I'm trying to lend support to a difficult situation.
Perk up.
How
Feel
much
good
of
to
the
perk
time
up?
was she crying?
A majority or a good portion.
Thank you, Mr. Sims. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Is it possible to get a glass of water so I can keep going? I'm sorry.
We'll be happy to.
Thanks.
Would you like me to wait? I'll wait.
Yeah, just wait 1 second.
Sure.
Get this man some water.
Pardon. Bottles.
And we're gonna go into, everybody's gonna start making jokes. We get a moment of downtime in Lana Clarkson. We go to the comedy club.
Drink from it carefully.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. Welcome to the party, pal.
It's sealed. Okay.
Just kidding.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Sure.
You're welcome. Good afternoon, Mr. Sims. I have a couple questions for
What
you.
have you been
First, I
doing,
wanted
sir?
to Just note that you apparently gave an interview or talked with the defense investigator, Tani Tyndall, is that correct?
That's correct.
And the first time you did that was on July 19th, just about a week ago, less than a week ago, right?
When we sat down and did an interview?
Right, up somewhere in the mountains?
Correct.
I'll leave it at that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that's the first time you talked?
I talked to her by phone previously.
Okay. And prior to that, did you do an interview on Court TV?
I did.
Okay. And how long ago was that?
Sometime in May.
You don't know whether or not that was aired, but you did give an interview on Court TV about this subject, is that correct?
I did.
Okay. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what business you're in. I know Mr. Rosen asked you some questions about that, and what I heard, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong, that you have a couple different hats. One, you said that you were an independent film producer of high-end independent movies. Is that correct?
Yeah.
The kind that, I'm not a movie buff, but the kind that go to like the Sundance and those kind of festivals?
Sometimes, or would be an HBO premiere. In other words, not schlock, I hope.
I understand. And how long have you been doing that?
Many years.
More than 10? More than 15?
20.
More than 20? So you've been in that business for a while. And again, I don't know anything about that, but when you say independent films, what exactly does that mean?
Typically means a movie that isn't financed from the get-go by a major studio, but might be distributed by a major studio later. For instance, I did a film called Listen that we funded privately, meaning investors put up the money privately, and then we turn around and we sell it to distributors around the world. In the case of that film, for instance, the BBC in the UK did buy it.
Schlock's
and
the
MGM,
best.
or at the time Orion, bought it for distribution in the US. So it started out completely independently, meaning no studio had any hand in financing or decision making.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm hearing that that's more risk than some other kind of films that are produced. Is that correct?
It is.
And the risk isn't because you don't have any financing from the beginning?
No, the risk is because you may not have anybody buy the movie after you've made it.
So after all that work and effort, people at least...
I know so much about like making movies back in the 80s, and you know, some of the directors that were doing the like 80s B shitty movies that were fucking killing it because of the mom and pop rental stores that were around the country, and they could sell them to these places and like turn insane profits. Oh man, you could make a killing if you knew what to do and what was happening. If you was like, you had to be almost like brought in to be able to get the secrets of, hey man, it's actually doable. Like that's dried up and it's a lot harder now, even though we're kind of coming into a cool era of like, you know, young filmmakers or anybody can make a movie now and you never know what could possibly happen.
That line of work, and I
thought about trying to write like a script or something, but
I guess that's important to ask
take
you.
a lot of time and I already have no time.
They may or may not, after all this work of making this movie, find anybody to put it up on a screen and let people watch it. Is that correct?
It is correct.
And of course, I guess at the end of the day, that's why you do make these films, is because you want people to see them. Correct?
Correct.
And make some money.
And make money, hopefully.
Right. So would you characterize that as a pretty risky kind of business in the whole entertainment business?
Absolutely.
And that business has ups and downs in it, correct?
It does.
I mean, you could hit the lotto, so to speak, and get a couple films that you've made that are bought by big companies, and I don't know what those would be, but big companies, and they go nationwide, and all of a sudden you're accepting an Oscar. I mean, that's hitting the lotto, right?
Correct.
Or you could make 3 or 4 of those films and nobody buys them, nobody sees them, and you spend a lot of time, effort, and a big part of your life for nothing.
Correct. I think if you
I'm not suggesting you did that.
Yeah, no. I think if you know what you're doing and you make good films with the right people, you typically won't have that scenario.
But isn't it true that there are people in the business who do make films that don't go anywhere?
Absolutely.
And have big hopes and dreams, isn't that correct?
Without a doubt.
It's a tough business, right?
As tough as it gets. I wouldn't wish it on anybody.
And people that are in that business are not only like you who produce these films, but also the actors, directors, writers that are involved in the business, right?
Yes.
They can either, as I was suggesting earlier, hit the lotto and be very successful, or they can struggle for a long time.
Yes.
And you have told us that you've been in the business for a long time. Isn't it true pretty much everybody knows that's their lot in life? They can either hit it or they may struggle for a while.
Yes, and I invariably tell people who come for advice, especially on the acting side, that if there's anything else that would make them happy that they could do, that they should do it.
When you say the acting side, why do you say that?
Because I managed actors for many years, and it's a brutal business, and more so now.
Why?
Because the business has changed and it's become less egalitarian. In other words, you could make a living as an actor who wasn't a big star, but today you tend to have actors who either make what we call scale, which is the minimum that Screen Actors Guild pays, or someone who's a huge star who's making 20 or 30 million a picture, and so that mid-range has disappeared to a big extent. So an actor who used to be able to, who wouldn't work very often, they might work 3 or 4 times a year, but they'd make $20,000 a week or $30,000. Sounds like a lot of money, but it's not if you only work a few weeks a year. That category has dried up to a large extent, and it's affected the entire business, where you see the talent agencies consolidating. There's just a handful that really control the business, and it's a harder go than it's ever been as an actor, I would say, in my opinion.
So it's tougher now than it used to be.
It is.
That's what you're
way
saying.
tougher now.
And you said that you've, over your career, and I know that you mentioned that to Mr. Rosen, managed various actors at times, correct?
Correct.
In fact, you mentioned one that got a TV show. I may be missing that a
Well, I
little.
handled 4 or 5 that had TV shows at the same time at one point. It was a different business then.
Right, but that's being successful.
It is interesting how much it
and there's a
changes
lot of
over
people
time, like
who
the 80s,
don't get those TV shows, but they
70s,
just need one.
80s, into the
Correct.
90s.
Now, you said in an earlier
the
answer
2000s,
that when you
shit
talk to
starts
people in
drying
the
up.
business,
And I
especially
think we're in a new
actors,
boom
that you
period
say,
of there's
"Boy, if
so
there's
much,
something else in your life,
so many
this is a
different
tough business, you ought to think
companies
about that,"
making
right?
product.
Yes.
There's
Yeah,
so many
I think
shows you
about
can't even watch
alternatives.
them all, and movies
Correct?
Yes.
that do
But
well
there
and
are
are
people
successful
who are
and
just
have a
driven,
fan
who
base
have the
thanks to the
streamers
internet.
need, this desire to be an actor,
And
to be in show
some
business,
independent
and they
films
keep pursuing it
can
and
absolutely
pursuing
do
it,
well and blow up,
and
which
they
is
do
unheard
it
of about
with
20 years
hope
ago.
and with perseverance.
Where in the 80s and 90s, it would happen
And
also.
Lana Clarkson was one of those people, isn't that right?
It was. She was, yes.
I think you said that you got to know her through Pumpkin Pie in the backstage, right?
Yes, sir.
And you found her over, how long did you know her?
Over a period of a couple of years.
And you found her to be, and I think I have this right, a good human being, generally upbeat, happy? Is that what you said?
Yes.
And would you characterize that also in terms of her hopes for her career, to the extent you talked about it over the whole time that you knew her?
Would you repeat that? I'm sorry.
All right, I'll withdraw it and ask it again. You found her to be a hopeful, upbeat person, is that right?
I did.
We've talked, Mr. Rosen talked to you about just one evening, but you knew her for a couple years that you told us about, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you saw her a number of different times at various social functions, including backstage, right?
Yes, sir.
And did you generally find her to be an upbeat, happy, good human being?
In general, yes.
I think in answer to one of Mr. Rosen's questions about this party and what she said to you, where she was upset at the people in the business or upset at the Hollywood business, for want of a better term, isn't that what she said? Basically, during that conversation, she was upset, she was mad at people, correct?
Correct.
That you said that in your experience of all these years in the business and managing actors and also producing films, that wasn't uncommon at all for people in the business. By that I mean the entertainment business that you've dealt with. It wasn't uncommon for people in the business to express feelings like that, right?
Correct.
You've heard that a lot in your lifetime in this industry, correct?
I have.
Somebody, I'm sure if they get that TV show or that film, they're excited about it and they think this is the greatest business going. Isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
but they get a couple rejections, and pretty soon people just generally in your business get upset. They get
Yeah, she definitely would have done better today.
like they've had it with this, right?
Yes.
Is that correct?
She came out of a good era where she had a lot of work till
all of us
into the
during Mr.
drying up
Rosen's,
phase.
direct
Actually,
examination
and
that
you know,
you
as you
heard
get older, it's harder to
people
fill
say
roles.
things like that a lot in the business. It's true, isn't it?
She was a bombshell in
Yes.
a lot of those old
What
roles.
you heard from Lana Clarkson that night, she was upset, she was crying.
I think pretty
But
much
you
all of
heard
them,
that
actually.
Before from
She was
men
hired
and
because she
women
was
in the business,
gorgeous.
right?
I have.
I think you said.
And that's
you
just
said
the
that
fecal nature of humanity, and
when
especially
a
Hollywood.
woman, an actress like this, gets down or a little upset about the business, you felt more like comforting them, and the men, you felt like giving them a slap and saying, you know, wake up and accept reality.
I was referring more to when somebody's in that state, it's not so much somebody in the business. It was more, yeah, I mean, I would have been probably a little more understanding if it was somebody who had a rough go as a guy in the business too and lost something. But still, it's different, yeah.
So just to make it clear, so you're saying that you wouldn't have a different level of concern for a man or a woman, you just handle it differently?
Correct.
Okay, fine. And Ms. Clarkson told you that she was upset that, I think Mr. Rosen mentioned a play, but you didn't really remember it, but she was just upset that she thought that she would be maybe farther along in her career at that time, right?
Correct.
But you've heard that from many, many people, correct?
I have.
And that's a common feeling among actors in Hollywood, correct?
It is.
This wasn't something that was unusual that you never heard before. This is common, right?
That kind of despondency.
Being upset about not being successful in the business after trying. You've heard that from lots of actors in your career, haven't you?
I have.
Okay. Now, you told us about talking to Pumpkin Pie.
Interesting. Oasis
after
Cat bringing in the
Lana's death.
facts.
Is that right?
Fun fact.
Yes.
And you said that she was very depressed and upset.
Yes.
And this continued for a long period of time, right?
It did.
And because of your friendship with her...
Oh, Kathy coming through again this morning. Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate it. Keeping this thing alive. Trying to build a will here. We're at 6 on here now, so we're halfway there. 420 put pumpkin on the wheel. She's feeling lucky for stickers. Not only a sticker, but also for some maggots. That's right, maggots and a keychain. Pumpkin, let's see. We got Pumpkin finally the shirt, so let's see if we can get Pumpkin all the rest of the goodies. Thank you so much, Kathy. I appreciate that. Coming through. Jip, really appreciate that. Hell yeah. Yep, halfway there. See if we can keep on building that thing. Thank you so much.
You called her and checked on her, isn't that right?
I did occasionally. I mean, it wasn't a daily or weekly.
Well, once a month, twice a month, that sort of thing. But you showed concern about it, correct?
I did.
All right. You didn't feel that same level of concern about Lana when she left that night. This was a one-time situation. It wasn't like Pumpkin Pie, who had been upset for a prolonged period of time. This was a one-time incident in your relationship with Lana Clarkson, correct?
Can you ask that again, please?
Okay. What you saw from Lana Clarkson that night was different than what you saw from Pumpkin Pie, where you tried to call her and make sure she was okay. It was a different level of
Well, I mean, no, it was it felt serious to me just in terms of where she was at, and it was just before she died, so there wasn't a lot.
We are in some crazy times. Let me see. Actually, let me see if I can verify this right.
This was just the week
Everything's
before.
so fucking
So
stupid.
did you make a call to her the next day
No,
to see
I
if she
wasn't
was
that kind
okay?
of friend, but I did talk to Pi about it, as I recall.
And was Pie concerned?
I believe so.
And so did the two of you go and help your friend Lana Clarkson out?
Help her out post that
post your evening at the...
As I recall, I traveled after that. We're talking right before. So it was really,
Okay, this is legit. I looked into it a little bit further, so I'm going to pop this over. Yeah, living in absolutely insane, crazy times. Get these off her. We'll read it. Breaking: American Airlines plane bomb scare forced to Rome, Italy. American Airlines flight AA292 veered sharply near Turkmenistan, diverting to Rome mid-journey due to a bomb threat disrupting its New York to wherever the fuck route. I know that word too. The plane N8408N is now the focus of intense inspection as Italy officials prepare for its arrival. Travelers remain stuck in uncertainty. And then hold on. I asked Grok. I was like, is this even real? Is this actually what's happening? And it did. It said so. As of right now, February 23, there are reports circulating about a possible bomb threat on an American airline flight. This flight was originally en route to JFK. Yeah, so it does actually seem real. And again, horrific, crazy, fucking weird times we're in. Everything is stupid, man.
To answer your question directly, it was really Pi's relationship with her. It was
BGOG. You started out the chat this morning.
Friendship. So
you doing?
I call up and follow up in the following days? No, it just wasn't that kind of friendship.
When did you call Pi if you were traveling?
I don't. Well, when I talk, you mean after Lana died?
No, before. You said that you thought this was a concern.
It's been a while.
It's
been a while.
Probably the next day, and it was one quick conversation. That's the best of my recollection.
And where were you when you made that call?
I don't remember. Maybe in the hotel.
And you called just to see if Lana got home okay?
She was just to talk about the night before.
Okay.
I want to check that though first.
Now, you said that Lana Clarkson had been drinking there at the hotel, correct?
Yes.
But it was a party. How many people were there at the High Point?
There were probably 40 people there.
Okay. And were others drinking?
Absolutely.
Were you drinking?
I was.
So it wasn't unusual?
To be drinking? No.
Right. Could I have
We were all over 21, I think.
Oh, you also mentioned that Lana talked about her personal life a little bit. Is that right?
Some.
And you, about men?
Vaguely. As I say, this conversation is going on 4 years old, and I don't recall a lot of specifics, and I don't recall asking a lot of specifics. It was more letting her talk and just kind of being a shoulder to cry on.
Do you recall telling Tani Tyndall just last week on July 19th in your interview that she asked you about the subject of gentlemen and Lana, and you said, I think she talked about a few people, but nothing great going on in that department as far as I can recall.
That's my recollection. I don't recall specifics about her love life, and it really wasn't my business.
Right. And during this conversation, she didn't really dwell on her, as you said, love life or her relationships in this conversation, did she?
I don't recall her doing so, but
But you do recall her being very, very upset with people in the business and her lack of success there.
That stands out.
Right. And like you've told us that you'd heard many times before from other actors, correct?
Correct.
And then there was the issue of family, and Ms. Tyndall asked you if Lana ever discussed her family and her relationship, and you told Ms. Tyndall just last week, well, there was some stress there, or lack of a great relationship. I can't really be sure.
That's a vague recollection I have. That's the best that I can tell you.
Again, so that wasn't, the family relationship, like the men issue, wasn't a focal point of your conversation with Lana Clarkson that night, was it?
It might have been, but I don't recall it having been.
Well, but you do recall the actor.
Yeah, some things I remember, sure. Some things I remember better than others.
You may.
Feels like an 80s thing, right? It's returning.
You talked to Connie Kendall. I think you said that you talked to her.
I think it's an always thing, though, just like sporadic.
Is that correct?
I did.
Okay. And in that phone call, she was just trying to arrange an interview?
All we see now is this active bullshit, though.
Face-to-face interview with you, is that right?
She was.
Okay. Was that phone call before or after the Court TV appearance? Or interview, that's probably better.
It was after.
Okay. So you'd been on Court TV before you talked at all with Ms. Kendall from the defense, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And when was that Court TV appearance?
I don't remember the day. I probably should have looked, but I believe it was back in May, and I'm happy to tell you the details of how it came about.
Well, you're a busy guy, and you said you weren't wild about being here, so were you happy to be on Court TV?
No, I received a phone call from one of the producers at Court TV who works for one of the anchors who is a personal friend, and they recalled my having known Lana and some of what happened right after her death. And they had contacted me and asked me if I'd be interested in being on, and I did not say yes at the beginning. I hesitated. To be honest, I had some bad information that if I was on Court TV that I would not be a witness, called as a witness, and I guess that's
that's why you went on Court TV?
It's not why I went, but it was a factor because I was told that I definitely didn't want to be here, and I definitely told them when they called me that I'd think about it, and I personally know one of the anchors, and there was some personal involvement, and I thought if I could provide something that would round out and flesh out what was going on more than as a caricature, I would do it.
And so that's why you went on Court TV, at least in part, is to give this fuller view of Ms. Clarkson?
I went on at the request of someone who's a friend who works there, too.
But Lana Clarkson and Pumpkin Pie were friends, right?
Soon old Judge Dowhart's just going to be blocked behind a wall of fucking stacked papers.
And after this happened,
Jesus.
and you saw that Lana Clarkson's, what had happened, and well, let me withdraw that and ask it this. After Lana Clarkson's death and you saw Pumpkin Pie's concern about this, did you pick up the phone and call the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department Homicide Bureau and I want to tell them the little fuller story?
No, I stayed completely. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Did you call them and tell them this fuller picture of Lana Clarkson that you've told Court TV and told us here today?
I did not.
Did you consider that?
I considered discussing it with someone, and I just felt that if I could stay out of it completely, that's what I would do.
So you decided that even though you had this fuller picture of Lana Clarkson, you'd rather stay out of it until the Court TV people call. Is that right?
I'm going to object to that question.
Overruled, it's cross.
Can you repeat that, please?
You decided to stay out of it until Court TV called. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Nothing further at this time.
Correct.
Mr. Sims, let's pick up where Mr. Dixon left off. You didn't call the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, correct?
Correct.
You didn't call Mr. Dixon, did you?
No.
You didn't call Mr. Jackson, did you?
No.
You didn't call anybody in the DA's office, did you?
I did not.
Now, you said that you wanted to stay out of this, is that right?
Correct.
And even as late as over the noon hour when we met during lunch, you indicated to me you didn't want to be here, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So why don't you tell the jury why you didn't call the Sheriff's Department, why you didn't call Mr. Dixon, why you didn't call Mr. Jackson, why you didn't call anybody in law enforcement. Tell the jury why you didn't.
I felt that there were other people who were closer to the situation than I that were handling it, and I really just wanted to stay away from it. I didn't feel that I had a place to do that.
All right. And that's why you made the decision not to, correct?
Yeah, I don't recall. Yeah, there was some thought about it at the time, but yes, I made a conscious decision just to be on the sidelines. wasn't one of the central players in this by any means, so.
Okay. You're not looking for 5 minutes, your 5 minutes in the limelight in this, are you?
No.
Okay. And you're not getting paid anything for being here, are you?
No.
And you're not getting any kind of remuneration from anybody on the defense for this, are you, or anyone else?
No one anywhere.
Okay. You haven't been contacted to write a book or make a movie or anything as a result of being a witness in this case?
Not at all.
All right. Now let's talk about this Court TV situation. Let's take it from start to finish. How did it come about that you were contacted by somebody from Court TV?
I received a message from
That's
Ann
crazy.
Hartman at Court TV.
Can you please spell that name?
I can try. I think it's ANNEHARTMAYER. But I'm not 100% sure.
How do you pronounce the last name, please?
Hartmeyer or Hartmeyer?
Hartmeyer, all right. So Ms. Hartmeyer contacted you, is that right?
Yes.
Let me make sure I understand this right. You didn't call her?
I did not call her.
Did you reach out to anybody in Court TV?
Not at any time.
So they contacted you, right?
Yes, sir.
Why didn't you call them?
Why did I call?
Why didn't you call them instead of them contacting you?
I had no interest in calling them or contacting anybody about this.
Okay. So Ms. Hartman reaches out to you. She calls you on the phone?
Hardmare, yes. I've kept her message just in my records here.
Right. Since I can't seem to pronounce her last name, I'm going to call her Ann, if that's all right with the court. So tell us what happened. Ann calls you. What happens?
Her message, she left a message. Shall I give the name of the people involved at Court TV or just generically?
What we're interested in is we want to know how it came about that you were on Court TV.
The message I got was that Lisa Bloom was wondering if I would be willing to talk about my friend Lana that she personally knew of years ago, that there had been some connections there. And
let me interrupt you a moment. Yeah. Was the name Lisa Bloom a name that you heard for the first time in this message from Ann?
No, I know Lisa.
Lisa's a friend?
Yes.
All right. Go ahead. Continue with your answer.
I received the message. I knew at some point something might come up, and that's why I say I stayed out of this completely, so I had a lot of hesitation. I called and returned the call and said I would think about it, that I had hesitation about doing it. In hindsight, perhaps I wouldn't do it, but I heard their interest in, talking about it, from seeing if there's something that I could add, and I had some feelings that, I would discuss it as best I could, and it was really on a level of knowing somebody. I wouldn't have done it probably with a stranger.
Okay. So your decision to go on Court TV was because you did have a relationship with Lana?
No, I'm saying because I had a relationship with Lisa. No,
Lisa, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you went on it, when, in May?
I think it was late May.
Okay. Did you get paid anything for that?
Nothing.
And was that the only time you were on?
Yes.
And that was just to talk about how you knew Lana, correct?
It was really more to talk about the business, and that's one of the reasons that I did it. That was sort of how it was presented. What's this business like? It was really a conversation about what's the House of Blues like? What's the foundation room like? And I had some experience with that. It was really to sort of shed some light on the whole process, a little bit of how the business works and how that might cast some light on what had happened.
Would it be fair to say that that was the central theme of the interview?
Yeah, I mean, anybody can, if they were to see it, I would stand behind it as not being exploitation in any way. That would be the last thing that I would have any interest in doing.
Exploitation of Lana.
Correct. Or of the situation.
Okay. Now, Mr. Dixon was asking you some questions about the business. And he asked you whether or not there are ups and downs in the business, and you said yes, correct?
Correct.
And you described it as a risky business, correct?
Yes.
A tough business, correct?
Correct.
The hell?
I think
What is
you
Phil
also
doing?
testified on cross-examination that when people come and seek out your advice, that you tell them if they can find anything else that they like to do it rather than come into this business because it is so tough. Is that correct?
Correct.
You've made a number of films, correct?
Yes, sir.
And your yardstick, the thumb
to pull my
against
guy
which you
back up.
measure is, I think you said, if you make good
See what
films
Greg Sims
with the
has
right
been doing.
people, then some of the risk is relieved, some of the difficulties are relieved, and things should come out okay. Is that right?
Some.
Okay. Let me ask you. You've been in this business for over 2 decades, haven't you?
Yes.
And you've experienced some
think
degree of
this is
success
him.
in this business, haven't you?
Yes.
And you've been careful
doing
when you make
now?
your films, haven't you?
Still
I'm sorry.
producing
You've been
films.
careful how you make your films, correct? In
Yes.
terms of the people you choose and how you
And music
budget it
videos.
and how it's produced, right?
Yes.
And being a producer, that's a tough job, isn't it?
Yes.
Tell the jury why it's such a tough job.
Well, it's tough because you're
Well, actually, he's not as
responsible
active.
even on a small
He did
movie
something in
for a lot of money,
2023,
and you're
2020,
also
2019, 14. So
essentially juggling
it's very random.
100 or more relationships.
It's like even
that
after
go on
this, he
in
ain't
any
even done
given
that
day
fucking
of
much. Like,
what it physically takes to make a movie, from crew to technical writing. It's a complex business, so anything that can go wrong usually does, and it's difficult.
Isn't it true also, as a producer, it's kind of like the old Teddy Roosevelt thing, the buck stops here, right?
Yes, although today there's often 15 producers on the movie, so
Okay.
it's sometimes hard to tell where the buck does go.
the only one I've ever seen, I don't even know if I've seen it. I just remember seeing it in video stores, and I may have rented it because it's a horror movie. It's called The Fear, and it was the one that he was talking about earlier, where there's a sequel. There's one in '95 and then '99, and I do remember this like horror face. You guys will probably remember the box too if you guys were frequenting video stores like I was. But yeah, he produced that film. Those
Or maybe it just gets spread around to 15 different people, right?
He's not
Yeah,
doing.
especially
He's
on
not
the
doing a
indie
lot.
films.
Let's just be
All
honest.
right. In cross-examination, you were also asked the question about how brutal the business was. Mr. Dixon spent a little time with you about that, and you indicated that, I think in part of your answer, that there was a mid-range of individuals that could make money if they worked a couple, 3 times a year, and that was enough, but that's like disappeared from the radar screen. Is that right?
In large part,
Okay. And I think you said that the acting business, and then Mr. Dixon focused in on the acting business. You recall those questions?
yes.
And I think you indicated that, and to use your terms, is a brutal business, even more so now. It's a harder way to go. It is tougher now. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. We're in 2007. I want you to push the replay button for a moment, and I want you to go back to 2003. Would those same comments and those opinions that you gave to Mr. Dixon in his question on cross-examination also apply to those seeking fame and fortune in the acting business in 2003?
I mean, the change in functioning in the business, what I talked about with,
The fact that the acting business is a brutal business, even more so now than before. It's a very hard way to go. It is way tougher now.
Well,
We're in 2007 today. I'm
Yes.
asking you to go back in time, okay, to 2003, and I'm asking to those same opinions that you gave to Mr. Dixon that I just repeated, also would they apply in 2003?
yes.
Mr. Dixon asked you further, that segment of the business, the acting part of the business, there are people who are driven in that business, correct?
That are driven?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. They just keep on going at it, I think was Mr. Dixon's phrase. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that can be for a variety of reasons, right?
Excuse me.
Correct.
It can be for money, correct?
Correct.
It can be because they're true thespians and they want the opportunity to ply their trade as best they can, correct?
Correct.
Can it also be because they...
Wheel,
seek
you
fame?
ask, Oasis. The wheel is a physical wheel that we spin around here, and let me see if I'm missing anything also. To give away some stickers, to give away what I have right now, an awesome keychain, and then also some magnets, Murder Church logo magnets. You can put those on your fridge if you'd like. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything here. just real quick. No, I'm not. No, Kathy's coming through here rocking and rolling this morning. I appreciate it. We are halfway there, though. And, yeah, soon I'll probably do I'm going to make that one Fuck Yeah shirt from Feral Friday. If you don't know, again, that was an insanely awesome show, dude. We went wild. Heavy metal parking lot. Statutory rape in the parking lot. It was a fucking crazy. It was insane. I got to break out some clips from that. But yeah, I'm going to be making some shirts, and we'll give away a shirt here soon when I do.
Could be.
Bob's still hanging and banging. Hell yeah.
Have you met people in the acting side of the business who want to chase that fame?
Yes.
Now let's talk about some of the other areas that Mr. Dixon covered with you about Lana.
Have you got a ways Mr. Rosen, excuse me, have you got a ways to go?
I do, Your Honor.
All right, we're going to take our break. Ladies and gentlemen, keep in mind the admonition.
You touched that hard,
We'll
like,
be
Jesus,
15
fuck.
minutes. Thank you. You return in 15 minutes.
Get me the hell out of here, is what he's saying.
I'm telling you like it is, baby. Are you crazy? Are you out of your mind?
That was insane, dude. That was fucking crazy.
Parties, jurors, alternates, and the witness are present.
I still couldn't believe it. I was like, what? And then he just starts making out with her? Jesus fucking Christ, that was insane, dude.
Mr. Sims, before we took the recess, I think
1986 Judas
talking to
Priest
you
parking
about,
lot.
The fact that you said that people are in the
Wildness.
business are driven by different things, and we talked about money
Remember?
and
Morning.
acting as well as fame. And I wanted
Hell
to
yeah,
ask
33
you
likes. That's what I'm talking about.
the following.
Love to see it. Beautiful people in the
Has it been your
house.
experience in your profession, meeting many people like Lana Clarkson, who was on the acting side of it, that when the money doesn't come, the fame doesn't come, or the acting roles don't come, that sometimes these people turn to alcohol,
Yes.
drugs?
Yes.
And
Alcohol is a drug.
it is, you're correct. Have you also witnessed people engage in reckless behavior in that situation?
I think this is going way too far. The objection is sustained.
Very well. Let's talk about some of the terms you use and some of the adjectives you used to describe Miss Clarkson when Mr. Dixon was cross-examining you. He asked you if Miss Clarkson appeared to be a hopeful person to you. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And if she was upbeat. You recall that?
Yes.
And he asked you if generally she was that kind of a person. Do you recall?
Yes.
And I think you said that she was, correct?
Correct.
The night of the St. Regis, do you recall what day of the week that was?
Tuesday night, I believe.
Flowing into Wednesday morning?
Correct.
Okay. And that's because the backstage usually has its event. Pumpkin Pie has her event on a Tuesday night at the backstage.
Correct.
So this was actually about 5 days before February 3rd, correct?
I believe so.
In the conversation that you had with her over a period of several hours in the suite that night,
Yeah, the airplane with a possible bomb on it has still not landed. It is still on its way to Rome. 2 Euro fighter jets are still giving the aircraft an escort. We do not officially know if this bomb with people on it, plane with people on it could potentially have a bomb on it, dude. What the fuck?
was she upbeat?
That is crazy.
No.
Was she hopeful?
That's happening right now.
No.
Did she appear depressed to you?
She was depressed.
I think you used the word despair, despondent also.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Mr. Dixon also asked you about another area. He asked you about the area of whether or not people on the acting side of the entertainment business can ultimately sometimes get that part. You recall?
Yes.
I'm asking. And sometimes they do, don't they?
As in that big...
Yes, that, as you were talking when you were speaking with Mr. Dixon, the two of you were chatting about that, getting that big part, yes?
Yes.
Making that big movie, correct?
Correct.
That big show, right?
Or an important part in a small movie that gets attention.
Okay. And you knew Lana Clarkson over a number of years, isn't that right?
Correct.
Not days, weeks, or months, but years, right?
Correct.
During the time that you knew her, over those years, did she ever get that part, to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Did you ever see her enjoy that kind of success that you and Mr. Dixon were chatting about on cross-examination?
No.
And on the night, that Tuesday night, just before February 3rd of '03, to your knowledge, had she ever gotten that part or enjoyed that kind of success?
No, not to my knowledge, no.
Now, you talked about, with Mr. Dixon, about what you observed in Lana that evening flowing into
Stand up
the
and
early
stretch my
morning
back real
hours
quick.
of Wednesday, up till about 3:30 when Pi came to pick her up, correct?
Correct.
And you talked about that kind of despondency. In my notes, I've quoted that. You remember making that statement?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you spent hours talking with her that evening, correct?
Correct.
And I think you indicated that you felt that it was very serious where she was based on that conversation, correct?
You mean in her life?
Yes.
I thought she was in a bad place.
Had you ever seen her more despondent, more despair than that evening when you spoke with her at the St. Regis in all the years that you knew her?
No.
You were concerned, weren't you, about where she was in her life?
Sure. Again, I mean, not being a best friend, but being somebody who was having such a hard time, sure.
And so you actually did, in fact, reach out to her best friend the next day, didn't you?
Yes.
And that was who?
Pi.
And how did you reach out to Pi?
Well, again, many years old conversations, but I thought something needed to be done, and I didn't know. I wasn't the person, but maybe she would be there for her in a way. Nothing that she wouldn't know herself. It was really just stating the obvious because Pi was there that night, so she knew what was going on as well.
You didn't select Pi randomly, did you? You chose to call her for a very particular reason, right? About the situation?
Correct. Well, her friend, her best friend.
Okay. And I think you indicated that you traveled shortly thereafter, is that right?
It's my recollection.
I understand.
Always traveling, so.
Okay, I understand. And just a couple of
stop
other
traveling,
areas,
bro.
please. Regarding two areas that Mr. Dixon discussed with you about, one, I want to ask you about the family and her relationship with him. Mr. Dixon asked you if you had indicated to Ms. Tyndall in your interview with her just last week that there was some stress there or lack of a great relationship, but you weren't sure about it. Is that correct?
That's my recollection.
But my question is, you do recall some discussions, but you can't get any more specific than that regarding her relationship with her family, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And also, I think you indicated to Mr. Dixon that there was also a discussion with Lana about whether or not there was any romantic individual, a gentleman in her life. Is that correct?
Some.
Okay. And you made the statement, which Mr. Dixon read to you, that you told Ms. Tyndall, nothing great was going on in that department as I recall.
That's my recollection. I could be wrong, but that's my recollection.
What did you mean by that when you said nothing great was going on in that department? I mean, it may sound like
There was no burning, romance at that time, or that there had been some things that were not happening anymore, and she was not a real happy camper in that department. That's my recollection.
She didn't have any discussions with you about anticipating getting married and having children in the immediate future?
No.
Court's indulgence, of course.
Winding down here. Gully.
Thank you. Process recalls.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Sims, I think you told one of us that after Lana's death, Pi was depressed and upset and couldn't get out of bed and couldn't get to work. Words to that effect, correct?
Correct.
And you somewhat compared that to Lana's situation that night, right?
I don't know that I compared it to Lana's situation, but
You said that Lana was depressed, in despair.
I'm not a doctor, but I don't know what a clinical depression is, but she was depressed from one person to another. She was depressed.
You're familiar with the House of Blues. I think you mentioned that to Mr. Rosen at some point, correct?
Correct.
Ever been to the Foundation Room?
Yes, many times.
Pretty upbeat, rock and roll place?
Objection. No, it's very broad, but it's within the scope. Overruled. You may proceed.
Pretty upbeat rock and roll club, right?
Music, not so much rock and roll, but lots of great music, sure.
In the Foundation
Hell
Room?
yeah, Sammy. Love it.
Yeah, I mean, Foundation Room's a private club, so now they do concerts in there, but before they didn't. It was really just a place to drink.
The answer was it's just a place to drink.
At that time.
Would it change your opinion about Lana's state of mind that you've told us about on this Tuesday night where you had this conversation with her, that she got up and she went to work the next day for 8 or 9 hours at the House of Blues, and then she did it the next day, and the next day, and the next day till her death? She went and worked at that Foundation Room every day for the rest of that week. Would that change your mind at all?
My mind about how she was that night, or?
Well, you said she was in despair. She got up, put on her clothes, and went to work at the Foundation Room for the next 5 nights.
I think she was great. So, I mean, my answer would be it wouldn't change how I felt, the place that she was in as a human being that night.
Just that night?
Yeah. And well, in her life at that point.
You've been to the Foundation Room. She was there working the next night. Introducing people, taking them, having them sit down, making sure who got in and who got out into the Foundation.
Excuse me, I'm going to object to that. That calls for speculation. No foundation.
Sustain as to the way the question is phrased.
Thank you.
Does that change your opinion?
Rosen could
She went to work every day
could
that
save the
week?
world. He could cure cancer and have to talk shit about this motherfucker,
You
dude.
may answer.
Because he'd probably be
I'm sorry, I have
the
to ask you just to
smuggest prick
rephrase
ever
it,
after he did
because
it.
My opinion about her general state or just the state that night?
Well, let me withdraw and ask you this. The Lana Clarkson that you knew over the period of time that you knew her was a happy, upbeat, optimistic person, correct?
Correct.
Thank you, nephew.
Thank you. Mr. Rosen?
Was she happy and upbeat when you were talking with her on the bed at the St. Regis?
No.
One last question. Before this jury, have you told the truth?
Do you want to go get some dinner later?
That night at the St. Regis?
Overruled.
Absolutely.
I have nothing further.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon.
Nothing further at this time, subject to recall?
All right, subject to recall, sir, which means you may or may not be recalled at a later time, so you're not excused.
And in this
Thank you
case,
for
you
being
might.
here. may
Honestly,
step
this case is insane. This trial, rather.
It would not without telling us. You must contact. You can do it through either the defense or the prosecution, so that if it looks like you're going to have to come back, we'll arrange it convenient for you. And, we're not trying to keep you from traveling. We just sort of need to know your schedule. Okay. Thank you.
Your Honor, we'll take responsibility for it. Mr. Sims will contact Ms. Tin.
Fine.
We'll keep the court informed.
That's fine. Thank you. All right. You may step down. Thank you. Do you have another witness?
I do, Your Honor.
Okay.
You call Mr. Bryan.
Okay.
All right, I do want to see where we're going next. This trial. 26 minutes with an LA County Sheriff's homicide investigator, Robert Kinney, takes the stand. All right, that's where we're going to be going next, ladies and gentlemen. But please, I'm going to go ahead and pop it up here to show you guys. Also, I'm going to be sending you out of here into, and if they're still streaming Joe Schmo and Salty Sleuth, they should be having a live going. But tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern time, come back here. I've got a very special live planned out right here. It's going to be a Blake Lively amended lawsuit discussion with Lauren Conlon. It's going to be interesting. We're going to be getting into this Hollywood sexual harassment lawsuit that has been put forth by Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, her husband. And it is pretty fucking salty. It's interesting. I'm pretty deep into that, so I got notes for that show here tonight, and then also on the old X machine. It's also on on YouTube as well. If you go to the video section, I have a new video. If you didn't see Thursday's live, going into the 764 cult, make sure to check out that live. It's got a lot of details, but I'm also breaking out videos and dissecting stories as well. And episode 1 of that is on the video section. It's an introduction and going into one of the fuckfaces that was called Almeida. And but yeah, I'll also just put that on X as well. So it's on here, ready to rock and roll. If anybody would mind to give it a heart, give it a retweet, that really gets that out there and continues to get the word out, because that is the most horrifying stuff that I've found recently, and it's even in our own backyards, literally in mine. Crazy in this area, fucking wild. That's on the episode 2. It's going to blow your fucking minds. But yeah, please come back through here. It's going to be really good. I hear Jip barking right now. She's like, I got to go outside. So I'm going to go doing that. Everyone have a great Sunday. Thanks coming through here in Modern today. Brooklyn, Shelly, appreciate it, guys. But yeah, come back through tonight. Gonna have another good one. Also, on the wrestling channel, on the second channel, if I can get it done, it should be dropping hopefully at 3:45 if I have time, if I can get all that going. I have so much going on, but I'm doing it, baby. Let's go. Thanks everyone for coming through, and yeah, see you later.